The Omniologists Collective is a public forum group aimed at curating communication, perspectives, and progress. Recorded at our studio in Montclair, New Jersey, we're focused on bringing the local community together to discuss topics that are important to us. You can access our group and live streams through Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Omniologists Collective. Welcome to the Omniologists, episode 6. We were just talking about how it's been a little over 1 year since we started these live streaming sessions. So thank you to you. You guys have been around since the beginning.
Yeah.
So this is part of the original, the OG crew.
You're the
so
OG.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. So we have a couple other guests probably coming in later. So we're going to start off the evening. Again, if you guys want to just quickly introduce yourselves so that we can remember everyone's names and maybe a little bit about that.
Cool.
Yeah.
You first.
Me?
Yeah.
Are you sure? What about you guys?
All right.
Well,
You wanna-
yeah, Kevin Lindahl was the second ever Omniologist Collective back when we were in the hidden hideout below the ground. So that was, I think, January of 2017?
18.
I can't believe it's I was just talking to Barbara. It feels like it's been longer than a year because we cover so much ground in these episodes.
Right?
So it feels like it's been 2 years or something. It's only been about a year, so that's really
I
amazing.
know.
And I feel like we've really covered a lot of ground and we'll continue to do so.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Chris. I am a musician, philosopher, artist, writer,
Jack of all trades.
barista, entrepreneur. What other things do I do? Gamer, apparently. That's the new thing I'm doing.
Apparently.
Cryptic nighttime jazz artist.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
That's a beautiful description. Yes. What Kevin said. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to support Barbara and all her philosophical endeavors.
Thank
This
you.
is my duty.
Thank you. And I am Barbara, and I am also an artist. I'm a teacher. I try and be a philosopher. This is part of my philosophy praxis, is understanding different perspectives and getting out of my comfort zone socially, so that's another thing. But yes, this is a project that I'm really happy people are still participating in, and I hope to do a lot of things with it. This past year has taught me a lot. I agree with you.
Yeah.
So much material is covered, and I've always felt like it's always been something really significant each time. So, we were talking about some stuff about science earlier, and I think that's maybe what we'll talk about this episode, or start off that way.
Sure. Well, it starts out with something that seems kind of simple, but then it goes, when I connected the dots with what Barbara said, it kind of went a little more complex, which made it a little more interesting. But when for years, even up until about 2 years ago, we have a cabin up on Lake Opakon, and we'd see the Canadian geese kind of making their way south in late September, early October. And by the winter, they were long gone. And then we'd see them coming back up here kind of like in April. And I don't know what's been going on. I don't know if any of the viewers watching at home have noticed this, but I'm seeing the Canadian geese flying around Bloomfield and Montclair in the middle of January, when the temperature's like 15 degrees outside. They're supposed to be, I think, in South Carolina, North Carolina back then, and kind of making their way back up in April. So I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I live in a high-rise building, the highest, tallest building in Bloomfield. And I looked out my window and I could see them flying north and then turning back again south, and like just flying in circles, like they were completely disoriented.
Wow.
And I thought back to when I was a kid. I had this conversation, I think it was in Brooklyn, New York, where my grandfather and my grandmother said to me, well, how do birds know to fly south for the winter? And this was like back in 81, 82. And I said, of course, the sun. The sun sets in the west, so they know where north is, so they're following the sun. And then my grandmother goes, well, what about when it's cloudy out? They can't see the sun. And she goes, it's a mystery. We don't know what it is. And years later, I was watching a science show where they said that there's magnetic pieces in the bird's brain that line up with the Earth's magnetic poles or magnetic fields. So then I'm going on Facebook and I see Barbara's post about something is wrong with the Earth's magnetic field. And I'm like, wait a minute, if these geese are being guided, especially when the weather's bad, by the magnetic field and something's thrown off, that would explain why they're still in the cold weather, still in New Jersey, when they should be in South Carolina right now in February, January, and why they're flying in circles, landing in the park and going back up like they're completely disoriented. If the magnetic field is changing, and think about our two stories, you didn't realize what I was seeing, and I didn't realize what you were seeing. So I didn't know about the magnetic field, and you didn't know about the geese. But when we put these two things together,
it makes sense. That was some empirical evidence to me, because I was saying how the day before you told me that I heard geese outside.
Yeah.
And I, it was just something, background noise, but it was enough for me to remember, oh, that's so unusual.
Yeah, exactly.
So
the scientists have to know what's going on.
Yeah.
It would also throw compasses off. Like now, luckily, navigation's computerized and stuff, but anybody who's using a compass who's on a ship in the ocean or something, it would start to be acting a little haywire. I don't think it's gone to the point where it's totally off, but it's going to be throwing directions off and stuff.
You know what this makes me think? I bet you this is what happened when the Aztecs got wiped out.
Oh.
Right? So, I bet you some sort of natural pole shift occurred, right? They say the Spanish conquistadors also, ended up there around the same time or something.
Yeah.
So, maybe, the conquistadors weren't planning on being there. You see what I'm saying? Maybe that happens more often in history than we think.
Right, and it's far enough away so that nobody would be alive when it happened last time. But our ancestors would have gone through it back a millennia ago or whenever it last happened.
Yeah, interesting.
And it would definitely, think about the Pacific.
Yeah.
Look how big the Pacific Ocean is. It's 1/3 the size of the planet. So back then you're traveling from island to island. You might end up at an island you didn't even mean to go to.
Exactly.
And have no idea you're in the wrong place.
Yeah. And we didn't have the technology that shows us this mapping of the electromagnetic field of our Earth.
Yeah.
Like we do right now.
Exactly.
But yeah, I feel so far what I've seen or read is that it's definitely it's mostly going to affect the animals, like you've been saying.
Yeah.
Which is
We
going
are
to affect
animals.
that. Well, yes, but I think more so the animals that heavily rely, on magnetic forces to let them know where to hibernate or where to go and migrate to. So.
And that's the question I was saying before is, now in April when they're supposed to go back to Canada, will they know how to get back home? Maybe there's a migration instinct with that too.
There's gotta be, right?
Yeah, I'm almost thinking they will find their way back home.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't know. They're not finding their way to where they're supposed to go.
Yeah.
Because that's the unknown, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or less known.
Less known, nice.
But that's the thing, and there's also the awakening happening now.
Yeah, right?
That's another thing I wanted to comment on. It's not maybe just geese or animals. Maybe we also have a magnetic sensor of some kind, right? And maybe that is also what is. Maybe there's something more going on, and what's going on in the TV and the media and the stuff is sort of covering that feeling. This is totally conspiratorial.
That's what the omniologist is here for.
But maybe that feeling, right, is something as a natural side effect of environmental change, and maybe a lot of the feelings and insecurities and nihilism that we're feeling are more about that, right? And then maybe there are people who know this and they try and hide it and subvert the feelings we're having naturally as animals. And using it
against us.
I always think stuff like that. I'm always
the
smart people who are evil are using this knowledge against me.
Well, it's back in the day when they used to diagnose any mental illness as you're we need to open your brain up or send you to the loony bin. You're wild, you're possessed or something.
Well, that's just out of fear.
Yeah, of course.
It's just out of fear.
We also eat a lot of metal, I think.
Yeah,
There's so much aluminum in our food.
More conspiracy.
And there's been people saying that blocks the pineal gland.
Yeah.
See, it's weird. If you think about it in reverse, it starts to make sense.
Okay.
We look at the world and we see everything as solid physical objects. We don't think of higher dimensional realities.
Yeah.
But what if so much is blocking our access to tuning into some of those realities?
Yes.
Not saying walking into them. I don't think it's, I don't think we would just somehow end up there physically on this side of the veil, on this physical life. But now they say us going into these angelic space clouds. At first I hear that, okay, how is Earth going into these nebula-like clouds going to open up other dimensions.
Yeah.
But what if the natural state would be to meditate and to be able to consciously perceive these dimensions? What if that's the norm?
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
all the blocks and the government trying to keep us angry and at each other are actually blocking out the norm. So it's less that the nebula is causing this miracle.
Yeah.
It may just be bringing us back to the way it's supposed to be.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So that's when you think about it in reverse. Why is a kid so spiritually in tune to all this color and light?
They're
They're able to
fresh.
see ghosts.
Yeah.
They're not out. They haven't seen as much of the world, but in their natural innocent state, they have more access to it. So it's almost like we are blocking it out rather than it's not an intelligence thing. It's a blocking out of our natural ability. I think.
Yeah, I got two things to say. What you're talking about is we've been recently talking a lot about dimensions, like the different dimensions, and we're defining them a little bit. And for me,
Just want to check.
I think there are 4 or 5
is gonna show
certain
up.
dimensions, right? There's the physical dimension, which is this that we're in. There's underwater. There is whatever is in space. Because like that's a whole different dimension of reality. It's like in space. Same underwater. It creates certain electromagnetic hums, which cause us to behavior, which cause us to behave a certain way. Like one thing that really, I'm like, I don't know, a huge conspiracy kick about like pornography lately, and I think that one reason why like pornography is a huge thing in general is because like people are so connected to their phones, right? And their phone like puts you on a certain wavelength, right? That maybe makes you think, like puts you in a certain mental state.
Oh, it does.
You know, or many mental states.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and maybe you can push people to like anger or other types of emotions based on whatever electric frequency you're pushing through your thing. Yeah. I'm like really on that wave
That's like
right
a big conspiracy too, right?
Yeah.
With like, that was like a weapon they tried to use in war, right? Like to change people, like a brainwashing type of like.
It's almost to put you into a zombie-like state, and then you're more susceptible to anything they do next.
That's mostly what happens. Yeah. That's
step one, and then after that, they can put you into the anger state through the dialogue.
It's like
that's
hypnosis
the dialogue.
almost. Yeah.
Right, and then it's like a buzzing, almost like electronic frequency that creates. You're more right than what I'm saying. It is a hypnotic state, and then it's
stage
the
one,
influence.
and then they have the ability to influence
with the
you.
propaganda that you're already staring at.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
You go down a really dark hole with that.
Anyway, so yeah, dimensions.
I also think there's a range. Like, okay, so metal is at a frequency that's different than wood, and but what if there's this range where everything physical we see is within this certain range?
Yes.
Metal, water, even air, a lighter range.
Right.
But then there's another dimension here in the same place, but the range is at a higher range, and
it's a frequency. Because I believe like that everything is a frequency.
Exactly.
And maybe we can't perceive certain frequencies of reality.
Like visually, ultraviolet A, B, and C, and I think there's D. Like there's all these different levels of ultraviolet light the human eye can't see, but animals can see the lower spectrums of it. And there's theories that there are beings in these higher dimensions. So the way I look at it is, let's say you have channel 5 on, and you drop the remote. You can't find the batteries. There's no way to change the channel. So now eventually you forget the remote exists, and you're only seeing channel 5. How do you explain to somebody that there's a channel 7 or there's a channel 2 without being able to change the channel on the TV? Every once in a while during a lightning storm, a slight thing might come in where you might see channel 7 for a flip and it goes back to channel 5.
That's cool to explain.
So that's we these other dimensions, or the beings in these other dimensions, psychically is the way we could tune into that, even if physically we couldn't cross those thresholds. And there is theories out there, if you watch some of the stuff coming on YouTube, that we were separated from a different race called the Fae, known as the Fae, that were able to psychically foresee their own destruction. This is what the story is. Because their psychic ability supposedly was stronger than even the greatest human mystics. So imagine if, 200 years before Hitler, the European Jews were psychically able to see him coming to power. Well, the Fae supposedly had this ability to leave our dimension into a higher Earth dimensional realm.
Wow.
And what the story behind it is they're not immortal, but that they're relatively immortal, meaning that because everything's at a higher frequency, they do eventually die, go to an afterlife, but they live like 13 to 18,000 years as opposed to 100 years.
Yeah.
You know what I think that is? I think that's when you are at a state where your Maslow's hierarchy of needs are met. When you have all your base needs met, your mind, I think, enters a certain frequency. I know I do. I all of a sudden feel like all conscious data coming in, like when you have, you know what the hierarchy is? It's like food, shelter, self-esteem, love, ego. No, it's it's food and shelter, love, self-esteem, self-actualization, and then like sex or something. It's like something more primal than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, once you have all of those things set up and you're at the top tier stage of self-actualization, when you are there for a very long period of time, that's like what nirvana is, right? You're all of a sudden in the cycle of self-actualization. And I think there are certain people who have their base 4 needs constantly taken care of for them. You know, so that they sit at the top of that 5th need. That's like the whole Illuminati like
That's also
thing.
why a lot of artists feel like they are like making these like creations that, you know, transcend in that kind of way.
Well, think about the hyper colors, and I call them the hyper colors because on a normal boring day we don't see them, right? But then when we're in a really good mood, like you're falling in love or you got a crush on somebody, doesn't it seem like the greens get brighter and the purples get brighter and the reds get... Like when I was a kid, there used to be a color that was out on Valentine's Day. So when Valentine's Day cards would go out, I would see this. And I don't know if it's because of my age or it's because of the time change. But now I see Valentine's Day cards, they're either red or they're pink. When I was a kid, there used to be this color, and the only way I could describe it was redder than pink and pinker than red. It was the reddest, either the reddest pink or the pinkest red. It was like a hybrid between the two.
Oh, cool.
And it was this bright reddish pink, but it wasn't red or pink. It was in the middle.
Yeah. Like
and now it's either
magenta.
Exactly, yeah. But now I never see that color.
Huh, interesting.
It's either red or pink.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you pick up on the colors because that already exist become more intense and have more of a vibrancy. And then when you come down, when your mood or your state changes, it's almost like, it's still green, but it doesn't feel as quite as vibrant.
It's almost like there's a gray cast on everything.
Yeah, it's like a dull cast. So when we're in a different state, and the thing is, memory isn't enough, because if you're sick, and someone says, oh, Barbara, you have pneumonia, just remember what it was like when you were well, and you'll get well. The memory isn't enough to get you well when you're sick. Even if you remember being drunk, if you're sober and a bunch of drunk kids come in, they're still kind of annoying, right? The memory doesn't get you over the edge. But when you actually change the state, then all of a sudden these things start coming back. But when you're in a state, when you're in a lower state, it's like they become invisible. Like the pathway is no longer visible anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what's amazing. If we can induce a state of higher consciousness, then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I remember that, and I remember that, and oh my God, it all starts coming back. The higher colors, the higher awareness, all comes back. But the thing is, how long can we maintain that state?
That's what I'm saying. There are certain people who are always there for long periods of time. It makes sense that they will live longer, right? Because maybe they're smarter, more self-aware.
They can self-heal their body.
That's what I'm saying. They're so aware of themselves that they can pre-game problems before they happen.
I'm convinced that the way to stop aging, almost become immortality, is to be, not just to like the present, this is hard, but to adore the present.
To only be in the present.
So much that all these other negative thoughts are gone and you're just in the present moment.
Being in love with the moment like that.
If you could really fall in love with the moment.
Yeah.
I agree with
Not
that.
easy.
That's so true.
Really, it's so difficult to do, especially when your basic needs aren't met. And that's a problem for, I think, majority of that's why I think collectively we're like, oh, why is everyone so more like upset and angry and this and that? It's definitely political, but it's like definitely this and I think it's because of that. Because they can't reach those basic needs, but we're also in a time where because of our ability to communicate, especially online, and how quick we are, we have this hope for what we see as not like a utopia, but how to remedy some of these issues. but that's what's keeping us down. Is
Anxiety's off the charts.
As much as I want to change the world, it's like sometimes I'm like, I gotta live paycheck to paycheck, and I'll do that exciting project that'll help people next month when I feel maybe less like I'm struggling, but it's
But think
cycle.
about that. You want to change the world, and we want to change the world, then all of a sudden we got to deal with the grocery bag.
Right?
You know what I'm saying? It's like this simple Monday, got a parking ticket. But yet our ideas are like to revolutionize the world.
Right?
So when we come down to this normal level, it even makes it more depressing in a sense because we all have so much potential. Everyone in this group has potential. And I've even seen the fans out there and the comments they leave, and they're very intelligent, like the questions they ask us, really mind-probing. So I'm really a shout out to you guys for these questions that try to stump us.
Yeah.
You never do, but you come close. But it shows the potential. So when you have that mundane, depressing day or nothing going right, how do people that have such great potential deal with those downtimes? It's because if you don't have high expectations, then it's easy to deal with the downtimes. But when you have, like what you're saying, the change and revolutionize the world, how do you deal with the rainy day where it's just sitting on the couch? I think that's where it becomes tough because we're all going to have downtime. There's no way to be up 100% of the time, I don't think.
Just coming in tune with what gives you willpower.
Yeah.
True.
Like for me, like I'm like a big fan of Batman. So I'm constantly during dark times trying to channel the archetype that is Batman. Right? I'm like, all right, so like, what is some guy who like lost his parents, who is like totally disassociated from society, doesn't feel like he has a purpose, but now has all of these options in front of him to do whatever he wants. Like to me that's like a great position to be in and to answer questions from. And so like when I feel like I'm like in the dark, I try and find like that gives me willpower to look to that archetype, because
it's almost like his past is not determining his future.
Right. Well, and luckily his like future and his present are all things that are still like that's what's great about sort of fictional archetypes is that they allow you to sort of constantly evolve them into probably your own image, I imagine. But that is what it's good about them. But yeah, it's generating willpower. And that's one reason why artists actually often fail at becoming successful artists because like it requires first willpower to create and then self-confidence to share. So it's just like all the energy went into even creating, convincing yourself you are worthy or able to create the thing that's in your mind. And then like having to communicate it or share it if you don't already hate it. Because like for me, like I often create things and it's not long after I create them that I hate them. I mean, 2 years after, I'll go back to it and be like, I made that? No way, that's so good, But like, no, within like 1 week, 2 weeks, like 30 seconds after I made something, I want to burn it.
Well, remember, the audience sometimes will look at the exact same painting you made or creation, and they'll have a completely different perspective.
Almost always. Almost always.
So they're not seeing it the same way.
I know.
Sometimes you're
That's
your
what
own
I have to
worst
tell
critic.
artists all the time. That's literally like what I tell artists all the time is the only thing that shows that. You know what I mean? And that's like really, that's it.
Yeah.
They were able to choose what they wanted, and they
pushed through the momentum, and we're able to sometimes getting that. Remember, the hardest part about momentum is the beginning.
Didn't give up. They
didn't
didn't
the
give
beginning.
up.
Once you have the momentum going, you can keep moving.
Yeah, ultimately they did not give up.
They didn't give up.
You know what I mean? And that's like, it wasn't because they were good, it wasn't because they were talented, it wasn't because they had the money, it's because just for whatever reason it was, they did not give up. That's all it takes.
Actually,
I think the hardest part is like pushing yourself to make something new. Because there's art that like
but new doesn't
can be
matter.
successful
I think
because it's
new
all the
is a
same.
progress thing. New is an idea delivered to us with the package that is progress.
Yeah.
And so I think the most important thing is authenticity. Like my favorite music, or like art, when I see it, I know it's authentic. It might look like someone else's, it might clearly be inspired by someone else, but I can tell when something is like that's
really
their thing.
Yeah.
Like that is definitely their thing. And so that's always what I go for. It's true that people copy and replicate and they show off their skill that way.
I mean, look at Hollywood now, where everything is a remake or a sequel. And I'm like, why would you want to be known? And don't get me wrong, like where I understand with what you just kind of said is human patterns, and it gets tough.
Yeah.
New is where we want to go, but the patterns. It's so easy to fall back into the routine. But if you look at Hollywood right now, I mean, why would a director want to just be known for remaking a film that's already been made? Come up with something
To subvert the archetypes. Everything in Hollywood right now, I don't know about ever in the past. I don't know about any other time other than the time I'm living in, for sure. But I can tell you that right now, the purpose of all Hollywood media is to destroy certain archetypes so people aren't as empowered by them. Like, they try to humanize them, quote unquote, by giving them negative qualities, but all that does really is destroy the possible idol you could have had. So, like, an example is they gave Batman and I think it was Justice League or Batman vs Superman, I forget. They gave Batman a gun, and he was shooting a gun. Yeah, I mean, that's like the opposite of what Batman is, right?
Yeah.
But like all those Hollywood movies are trying to do things
It's a shortcut.
like that.
I almost wonder if what you're saying is because of laziness and wanting to make the quick buck. Like, are they trying to destroy the archetype, or like, you know what, let's just do this so we'll make $1 million?
It's almost like a con job, because it's like you also watch those movies that are like that, and in the trailer it's just always going to be like the most active shots to make you be like, wow, like this is going to be really like, crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But then it's like you're literally watching Batman not even do what he normally does for like 2 straight hours.
Exactly.
Right.
It's
The
boring.
smartest trailer is ones that give you not the best or the worst, but give you like at the 75% level, but then there's the 25%. You're like, I had no idea this was even going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
And they used to do that. They would
Yeah.
never show the best of the best scenes. They would
Right.
show pretty good ones.
Right.
Now you're right.
Even now you watch a whole trailer and it's like, I just watched the whole,
The whole
movie.
movie,
There's
yeah.
no suspense.
Like, do you
no
guys
subtleness.
remember the trailer for Star Wars Episode 1, the first trailer?
Oh.
Yeah, I do.
Not the movie, the trailer. I
Yeah.
was blown away by that. Back in '99, I was like, "This is gonna be insane,"
Yeah.
And then it didn't live up to the expectations of that trailer. But
Yeah,
Well, I hope that I would like that the future of film would be more centered on like the DIY art. Like, I think it's starting to be in that kind of sense where it's the DIY artists are but I don't like that they're becoming they're becoming stolen genres. I feel like Hollywood or like the big music people are gonna steal like that DIY creativeness, so that if you, the like average person, wants to make a movie, you're gonna like have the lowest self-confidence because I feel like they do that a lot.
Exactly, yeah. And it's everything is being kind of duplicated. I also feel like the decades, in my opinion, we're about to hit the first standalone decade since the 80s. Until the year 2090, we will be in standalone decades. And what I mean by that is the 90s had to compete with the millennium. So when the 90s was coming to an end, we were all talking about the millennium.
Yeah.
And then the 2000s and 2010s didn't really have their own name because 2000s could mean the whole century, it could mean the decade, and 2010s the teens, and then the first few years of the tens.
Yeah.
And whenever we think back to the 1900s, we kind of think back 1900 to 1919. So it's 2 decades, not one. So there's all this, the competition of the first 2 decades, meaning the early part of the century, and the last competing with the closing of the century, in this case the closing of the millennium.
Yeah.
But then once you hit the 20s, it's just the 20s, just the 30s, just the 40s.
Right.
So now we are a year away from hitting a standalone decade. There's no competition to the 20s. It will be its own thing, and I'm hoping this resurges the creativity that we had back in the 80s and that, but come up with something new. It's the energy that was around in the 80s we need, not to reduplicate the 80s itself, but that idea that anything can happen, that it should be about the now.
But that came from a radical sense of individuality, right? Do you agree with that?
In the 80s, I think we were just moving into VHS. We were just moving into all these. Everything was new. So
Yeah.
the MTV was new. The sitcoms up to that time, we only had channels like 2, 4, 7, 9. There wasn't cable. It was just coming out. Now, for the first time, we had 30 channels. HBO. So everything was like, do anything. Just do whatever you want. And it was like the sky was the limit. So then it became successful, and we ran into this trap that it was so amazing that we started duplicating the what instead of duplicating the why.
Yeah.
I believe in the verb energy of the 80s. That, okay, instead of duplicating and remaking Star Wars and all these movies that came out in the 80s, or remaking like the old, trying to remake Family Ties, or what was the energy behind that? It was the sky's the limit. We could come up with anything new because it's never done before. So if we come up with that why energy, now for this time, let's do something new we've never thought of before, that's never been done, and just open up a whole new creative pamphlet. that was the verb energy behind the 80s, but everyone's trying to reduplicate the what.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
It is
that's
the
where
what.
all the it should be the why.
Wow. That's
What
very
was
true.
the energy behind it? And that's creative newness. In the 80s, everything was about the now.
Yeah.
Like, what are we going to do right now? We
Yeah.
weren't talking about the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like the reason why there are like so many remakes and stuff is, again, there's going to be that group of people in like Hollywood or media that know that no matter what, there's going to be people that just for nostalgic reasons are going to buy that ticket. Even if they hate the movie, even if they leave, they still bought the ticket.
Right.
And gave them, the
But
profit.
here's my answer to that. Why is a full moon special? A full moon is special because it's once a month.
Mm-hmm.
If a full moon was every day, it wouldn't be special. So what makes a song you heard when you were younger special? It's still nostalgic, and that's great, but it's on every once in a while, and you're like, you flash back.
Yeah.
But now if you hear that same song every single day, now it's losing the nostalgia
Right.
because you're hearing it all the time. So I have nothing against remakes when they're once in a while,
Yeah.
because that's what makes them special. Now you're flashing back to a great time. But if we're only doing remakes, the specialness is gone.
Exactly.
Now you're just thinking, okay, here comes another remake.
Yeah.
So that's, I feel like, the problem with it. Throw in a bunch of new stuff, and then every 9 out of 10 movies do a remake. But every 9 movies is a remake or a sequel, and then 1 is new? I feel like the proportion's out of balance.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, again, you know my take on it. I think it's like whatever's going on in the populace, take whatever story affects them in
It's
the
all
most
about
way.
this.
Yeah, bam. Yeah, it's all
and
about
that's
that.
why there's such low quality art. And it's funny because I feel like now there's even like a really like gray area between art and entertainment, which at one point the entertainment aspect of it was still considered like high art. Like theater was like art, you know, like that kind of stuff, And even like film at the time too, because it was revolutionary, right? To have a moving picture, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And like now it's just so sad that like one of my favorite art forms, which is like film or even music. Music is like so great too. And it came from such a deep place that now it's like we can all agree as like a populace or like, yeah, it's kind of a sellout when you listen to like the mainstream music. We all know it's kind of trash right now, and it stinks because it's like we're not even like fighting that, we're just accepting it.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
on every day, and then you start singing it and you're like, oh haha, I hate this song, but somehow it's on every day, so I'm singing it, and you
Yeah,
become
you
that
subconsciously
mindless
start to like it.
consumer. You
Exactly,
become a
yeah.
zombie consumer, and it's just sad that something that is important to me like art and being able to create the new world that you want to live in, is being like so constrained by like bigger like forces for our money.
It's
just,
being just mainstream marketed so that the stuff that's creative is not even getting through. It's
Yeah.
And they've proven that. You hear a song, you ever notice you hear a song the first time you hate it, and then after the 4th or 5th time you start to like it? You're actually subconsciously being brainwashed into liking the song. So that's part of the thing. Think about The Hobbit, though, and Lord of the Rings. I mean, and The Hobbit wasn't all that long ago. I felt like Peter Jackson actually said, all right, let's do some real creative stuff with this. It wasn't just all right, let's do a quick spin to make a buck for the book.
Yeah.
And that's what you need. Like what he did with The Hobbit only came out a few years ago. Lord of the Rings, a decade before that really went into, you saw heart in that movie. And I feel like with some of the Star Wars movies, there's good parts to it. Some of it is just about, let's market this, let's get the toys out. And you'll make money if you put the heart in it. Because people will be able to read through that.
Yeah.
When you just go for the money,
But
it
the
doesn't
heart is
last.
expensive, right? The heart is expensive. That's like, it's not about the return. It's about how
The
big
initial
is the
cost.
return.
Yeah.
How big is the return?
Exactly,
Right?
and that's
So like
what's sad
a
about
game
it.
that my friend Austin and I were really excited about was called Destiny. It came out like 2000, I don't even know now, a while ago. Because now there's Destiny 2 and whatever. But anyway, so that game was going to be made by the people who made Halo. Okay, it was like
that
the
was
next.
big, yeah.
It was gonna be the next one after Halo, like officially. And to me, like that was such a big deal because I love that game. And everything was going so great. They had all this hype or whatever, and then they just fired their writer. They had everything else. They had all the.
And you say it was already going on a good run.
Everything was
This is-
great. Yeah, they're. Yeah.
Did not flow with the first. It's almost like Ryan Johnson came in there and just said, okay, I'm not gonna technically break any of the rules of the universe, but I'm gonna go off on a completely different and he killed potential narratives that could have happened with Snoke and all that. So it's important to keep the same writers, even if the directors change.
Yeah.
So there's some kind of a continuity.
Right,
I would
but
say
they're
the same
expensive.
thing.
They're expensive,
Exactly.
you know, because they have real ideas. I think, you know.
But I think isn't it worth it? Isn't some things worth?
Exactly.
The
If it's your
investment.
we want
artwork, right?
quality.
Yeah.
We want quality. We're not trying to exploit people. Other people are. It's so sad.
See, but this
man.
is the other thing is that I think that if you're someone that like, okay, so you decide as your career because you're in the position to be able to afford, you know, the film school and like all that like stuff you got to do to become like a well-known like Steven Spielberg, like you know that type of thing. That after a while, the sad part is it's like you're not someone that's just making your artwork from a place of needing to like create anymore. It's like someone's telling you your deadlines for like we need a movie by here. It's kind of like books. It's like for instance, there's a really popular, you know, James Patterson.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah.
He has like a record like for like world record for the most amount of New York Times bestseller or whatever. But he makes like books like because he has a group of people that make but he makes them like all the time, and it's like at what point are you actually refining your artwork, making something meaningful, or are you just like shooting out movies and it's just like you don't care if they're trash because you'll make another one that's maybe less trash and you'll build back up your like
and it's
image.
all comes back. But look at Avatar. Avatar was a great movie.
Yeah.
Visually, it was 3D. It broke records. I think it was the #1 selling movie of all time. And then everyone tries to copy it with 3D movies that are obviously not made 3D.
Yeah.
They're just thrown together, and they do much worse.
Yeah.
Avatar made a fortune because it was the real deal. It was really made that way. So I think what's going to swing this pendulum back in the other direction is when people say that putting the heart and the investment into it is going to really get you a return, because people can see phoniness
Right?
and see authenticity.
Yeah.
And by the way, if any of you have any questions,
Yes.
we love your
Please-
hard trick questions that you
Please
ask
let
us.
us know if anyone's watching to give us questions.
Give us some really good ones, because you guys do. You know, you try to throw us off, and
Definitely.
that's very mean, but also we love it. So
Also, I think our other guests might be either coming later or might have to be on another episode.
Yeah.
We'll see. But so far, I'm enjoying this talk.
Oh,
so
definitely.
How you doing, Chris?
I am looking to share our.
do they have any questions for us?
Checking now.
Okay, well, Chris is checking that.
We're ready for it.
So where are we at? Art, meaningful art, creating things.
What about like the artwork when you look at it and just like it raises more questions than answers, like the mystery, like what does this mean, and where's
Right?
this forest going, where's this trail going up, like something that really probes the mind, or the psychedelic art where you're like really wondering about it. And I think like with almost like the art that I almost picture you would like, because with the posts you put on the page are really always raising mind-probing questions, getting you to think.
Yeah.
And I love the artwork that doesn't have the answers right in front of you, where you really have to
That you
look
make
at
up
the
your
image
own.
and figure it out. Yeah.
That's what I love about art, and I think right now it's like it's also difficult. I also feel like a lot of artwork, the way people respond to it, because we live in such a in such an age where things come so quickly at us that I feel like people are they want the answers quickly. So they'll even reach out to the artist and be like, explain this to us. And you know, it's have you ever watched Mad Men by any chance? The show Mad Men?
Mad Men?
It's like that show set back in like 50s, like
I don't think
in
so.
New York.
No, I don't think so.
Well, there's a part that references a Rothko painting, and you know how he's super abstract. He just paints the large squares. And I think the meaning of that whole part of it, this group of people were trying to figure out what it meant, and one of them just goes, I think it's just meant to just be.
Yeah.
You know, no meaning to it.
Exactly.
Or you can put your own meaning to it, but like, imagine back then if they had phones and could Instagram the artist and be like, tell me what this means.
Exactly. It's
Right?
like everybody is, and you got to blame technology for this too, which is technology is a great thing to give you answers. But sometimes, don't we do more of our thinking when we don't have the answer immediately in front of us?
Mm-hmm.
If we find the answer immediately, how much thinking is going on?
Zero.
When we have to probe and explore and really think,
Even like direction.
that's the challenge. Yeah.
Right? Doesn't it feel more successful even when you've gotten lost and your phone dies, that you got home and now you know in your head a new way
You
to get
solved
home
it
from
on your
somewhere?
own. Yeah.
Yeah, you actually learned something.
And you
Whereas
feel a little bit more like, oh, so next time I'm around here, I don't even need my phone. I can just drive myself home. Or
Exactly,
something. And a little bit, but there was the effort, and a lot of people are like too scared of the effort.
And it's causing attention deficit disorder, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, this was around before the internet. There was tons of kids with attention deficit disorder back in the day, but we have instant gratification of answers in front of us. but we don't have the depth. We have the basic surface answer.
Yeah.
There's so much more
Double
under
speak.
the Wikipedia. There's so much more behind the Wikipedia answer that if we really probe, that's when you find the golden nuggets of information. But it
That's
takes
literacy. That's literacy, and also we live in the age of doublespeak, like from 1984.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the language that we speak to each other is very shallow and regurgitated keywords from our media. Like
Yeah.
it's not deep narrative linguistic conversation like we have.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this is like rare what we do. You know, like most people are talking about social trends or like problem solving delivered to them by their society or social situation. Like rarely do they talk
extremely
outside.
biased.
Yeah.
I feel
That
like
stuff.
when you're not communicating in your community or like with the people around you, that like you get a very biased perspective and dialogue when you're able to fine tune who you're speaking with, what you're talking about, to the point where you can even like block out some of the conversation that makes you feel bad.
Yeah.
When in reality, I think it's good to like learn how to listen even when you feel uncomfortable, so you can understand why you're upset.
Yeah.
And even if you're someone that's like, I still feel upset, well then communicate that.
Right.
And remember, you're
You know?
also helping that person because
Yeah.
Right.
you're bringing your view to them that they may have been biased against and didn't hear.
Right.
So it's a two-way street. It really gets you to think outside the box. And my thing with politics has always been, if you can give me a way to solve the problem, if a conservative, I'm pretty liberal, I'm on the left, but I'll say to my Republican friends, if you can give me a way that spends no government money through the private sector, that ends homelessness, that ends disease, that ends poverty, it gets us to that goal without hurting mass amounts of people in the process, and it's through the free markets, and it works, why wouldn't I be open to it?
Yeah.
If it works, it works. Even if the philosophy's through a different path, we want to figure out a way to solve these things. And so if we have the same goal, I think that's when the conversation can still work. We may be heading on two different paths, but we're aiming to the same star, so
Right.
to speak.
Yeah, I think, you know, I lean very left as
Yeah.
well, very left. But one sort of conservative value I've sort of attached myself to lately is like this idea of like your community is the most important place, right? Like I can't have true control over my federal government. I can't have true control over people, or like not that I want control over people, but like any sort of, I can't convince any positive action or effect on the people that are in the larger spheres outside of me. But I can go to Bloomfield, for instance, and I can go meet some people and do something positive and create a ripple effect that will do something good.
And the ripple
You know?
effect is where you can. Because
Right, I agree
as
with
the
that.
dominoes fall,
Right.
the person you affect, and the person maybe we're affecting through this video now,
Right.
they go out and then take that with them, and they affect somebody else.
And that's why I believe that the community, your immediate community, wherever it is that you are, is the most important place to commit acts of politics. You know, because you are be it like in the ways you're talking about, like stopping hunger, stopping this, stopping that. That begins right outside your door.
And we're grounded here, right?
Yeah.
We're it's as spiritual as we are. We're
Right.
grounded.
Yeah.
Totally.
The red chakra in right now, right here, the reality
Yeah.
of the.
Yeah.
I don't. Maybe it's not the least spiritual, but in a way, it's the here, the now.
Yeah.
We make a difference here,
Right.
and then that will spread out, and it's a
That-
very real thing.
Because
I agree.
if you're someone that's going to stay inside your home and just look at what the phone is telling you is going on in the world, and you're getting upset at what's happening outside, but you refuse to even like go outside, you know, things aren't going to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So-
think about where does the depression come from? And I feel like it comes from not necessarily where you are. So like a person stays at home, like you're saying, they don't leave the house, or they go to a restaurant and they order the same exact thing on the menu all the time. It starts out in a place of, okay, I like this, I'm comfortable. But where the depression comes in and where the negativity comes in is not where you are, it's where you're not. Where you're
Yeah.
not. You
Yeah, I
know
agree.
you're not out there exploring the world. You know you're not trying a different thing on the menu. You know. So it's like where you are, you actually like.
Depression comes when you
But-
leave the now. It comes
Yes.
when you leave the now.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Yeah.
also
Yes.
competition.
Yeah.
And like seeing
Nice.
everybody in the entire world's lives like 24/7, a lot of them like are mostly superficial in terms of, I think that a lot of it isn't what we see behind the scenes.
We're seeing their best moments.
Yeah, they are cherry picking what they want you to see, but you, because of, I guess, how we are and the way we view things. We just want to believe it's reality, and it like is super competitive. Like
Millions of
24/7.
people are doing this at the
Yeah,
same time. You know?
Exactly. It's a lot, and I think it's like something unnatural, but it's inevitably something that's happened. Because in a way, competition can be good. It can drive you to like, you know, be a better you in your own terms. But I feel like a lot of people just want to be what they see. Like they don't want to like see something and then like come back and look inside themselves.
Be the
you know?
true you.
Yeah.
So be what's the best version of you, but that's
Yeah.
not going to be the other person.
Yeah.
You don't want to copy the other person because then that's...
And that's what the media teaches us is like, no, you like this person's perfect, you're not.
Well,
be
right now it's the
them.
opposite. Now
Be a
it's
bunch of
now
sheep,
it's don't
you know?
be this.
Oh
right?
yeah, now it's
now
anti.
it's don't be this. You know,
Which is funny because like when I've been in like different kind of jobs where I've dealt with children, so like teaching, I've done like daycare type stuff. And it's like, you're not really supposed to tell the kid not to do something.
Right.
You're supposed to tell them what you would like
Yeah.
to see them doing. So I
Right.
think it's funny that it's kind of hypocritical that, like, we would be saying that, even though we all know that that's, like, you know, not the right way to go about establishing a behavior.
Yeah, right.
Well, they
Well,
say
that-
the best way to break new ground, I'm an explorer, and I think you guys are too,
Totally.
like to go onto new ground, is not to say I have to stop doing this.
Yeah.
So look, I like being on the couch on a snowy day drinking hot chocolate, relaxing. There's nothing wrong with comfort.
Awesome.
But
Awesome.
you wanna rebuild, you wanna build a new pattern that makes the old pattern more obsolete.
Right.
So you want to go out and to say, okay, now I'm going to start doing this. You never want to say, I'm going to stop doing something I like.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you like, even if it's something comfortable, that's fine.
Yeah.
But then start something else that is a new pattern.
Yeah.
Because the restriction, they say, doesn't work.
Or even
Right.
adapt it to be something that can change. Like, you know, maybe you want to sit outside and have a drink instead and be in a new environment.
Exactly, yeah.
Right?
Look at the cafe. Look at the conversations go on in the cafes or the
Yeah.
bars. I mean, they
It's so-
really...
Yeah.
There's some of the bars, like, you have some really intense conversations.
That'd be a cool place to do like an episode, right?
Yeah, like Charity's over here.
That'd be fun.
That's a 70-year-old bar. You imagine, like, the conversations that happened there over the decades?
Yeah,
True.
right? That's
Yeah.
why I think
Yeah.
working in those places, it's just like such a phenomenon. You know, it's like, that's a human phenomenon.
Oh, it
Exactly.
is. And the coffee shops, too, man. Don't
It's the
discount
watering
that.
hole.
Like the
Yeah.
watering hole.
Yeah, it's really important.
That's where all the gossip happens.
Yeah, it is. It's where people go get their water, you know? It's the
Yeah,
beginning.
exactly.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Do you want to see how Dan's doing?
Sure. Taking my easy coming.
So, what games have you been
Late.
playing? Playing any games?
Hey,
Oh, so-
Carson. What's up,
Yeah.
Carson?
When you put together a combination of moves and they bring out graphics that are not the norm in the game.
Right, right. So, we're talking about,
Yeah.
Video
just to clarify,
games.
Dragon Ball Fighter Z.
Yeah.
And you're saying how, like, the mechanic that you especially like is how the certain combos unlock, like, actual visual experience, right? And particularly in the fighting game. And that is one aspect of the fighting game that's so cool, because when you tie up the combos just the right way, especially when you do a string of combos in just the right way, it becomes this fantastical fighting finesse experience.
Yeah.
And that's so cool.
It's a
And-
dance almost.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and you're almost not you're like, oh my god, when the first time you see it, you're not expecting it. You see the momentum.
Yeah.
Like you actually see the power in the moves that you don't see in the normal moves because they're made
Right.
to be the guy's flying across the screen.
Yeah.
There's colors that are unlocked that are not in the rest of the
Yeah.
moves.
Right.
And there's background scenery that's unlocked. So I like that unlocking of things that you don't normally get in a video game, but you do if you really put in this specific amount of effort
Right.
into figuring out the moves. And so that's what I liked about it.
As we go deeper down the rabbit hole of gaming,
Yeah.
you will see that this is a mechanic that defines a good game versus or a legendary game versus a good game. Like you'll see that the legendary games are the ones that are littered with tons of that secret
Yeah.
kind of stuff, you know, and it's awesome.
And we were talking before about secret boards. Like, there are some games, and I say Ocarina of Time is one of those games that's just
Like
probably
the
one of them.
secret parts to it. They can
Yeah,
unlock. The
and it was
extra
like
things.
the biggest jump I think in
Yeah, it was.
games.
One of the
I feel
biggest
like
ones, definitely.
That is a standalone game for the Nintendo 64.
yeah, like
Standalone.
pre Ocarina of Time, one set of games. Post Ocarina of Time, a whole other set
And
of
that's the
games.
divider.
You already-
And I feel like so that's probably and could be one of the best games of all time if you
Yeah,
think about
right.
it that way.
Easy.
And think about what it did. It was the first game where you would have a weapon that would only work when you're standing in front of this door.
Right?
So up until then,
It's like a true puzzle game.
it's like a puzzle game. Up until then, if you had like a shot clip or you had a gun, it worked no matter where you were.
Are you talking about like with the doors, the eye, you gotta shoot it with
You
the
shoot
thing
at
to
the
open
thing and
it?
it comes up, but it only works at that point. It won't work
Yeah.
anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's more specific than that. It's that you had access to the places that you couldn't unlock prior to having the tools to unlock them.
Yeah,
Or
like the
in
fire-
other
That's what
games,
gave
in
it
other
almost
games,
an open world theme.
Like
Right.
melting the ice, you could only melt the ice if the torch
right.
was lit, but that was before Ocarina of Time. You didn't have that.
right?
Right, that's the more
It was
three-dimensional
revolutionary.
problem solving. It's three-dimensional problem
Exactly,
solving is
yeah.
what happened. But yeah, and then also it's the
Side quests too.
right, and that goes down sort of the other tangent we were on of like the legendary versus good game. But in terms of like problem solving in games or experiences in games, three-dimensional problem solving is like definitely something that happened with games like Ocarina of Time because they were like more platformers. And you could sort of explore that, and that was definitely, I think, what made it kind of legendary. But like Barbara was saying, it gave it an open world feel. Like in gaming, what open world means is that you can explore freely the whole map, whereas in other games you really
It was
couldn't
linear.
do that.
It was more linear.
Right, and that's the one thing that made that game so huge.
Made it feel so
And the
big,
other
much bigger.
part,
right.
yeah, it was the open world thing, and I think it was just like the perfect story that would go with the open worldness of it.
Yeah.
Right? The time and how like, you know, that one spot at Hyrule Castle is where you like would like the portal between time, right?
Yeah. You're
And it
going
just-
back in time 7 years.
Right?
You're going forward in time 7 years if you're a kid, and then
Yeah.
everything's changed. The monsters have taken
Right.
over and everything.
So it was just a really good story that tied in with that whole like open world feeling because you really felt like you could go to each different place, talk again to each different character, and because it was aged in time, just that little part alone, going there and doing that one thing, you have like almost a whole second game to play now because
Yeah.
it's all different.
Exactly.
And that was mind blowing.
That's why it was like 8, 9 times longer than any game before. Because there's
Yeah.
a whole quest just around that one castle. Then you have 7 different
Plus,
areas
I thought that
to
system
go.
was perfect for that game.
What
because
about
it
the
was-
music?
Oh, the
Think about the
soundtrack.
music. The music when you went into the fire castle made you feel otherworldly, like you felt like you were in another world. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, and I think one of the best music soundtracks was Ocarina of Time because I felt like I was really in this other world just by the soundtrack itself.
So sad Dan's missing this. He's such a big Zelda fan.
Yeah,
right.
We'll
That's
have to
so
bring it
funny.
back. But yeah, it's funny because we started playing the new Zelda game for the Switch. That's like our new
Oh yeah,
system.
Breath of the Wild.
It's like not that great.
Yeah.
It's like not that great. It's like every other kind of like weird fantasy like.
Platform.
It's not. It's not exactly how we're talking about how like Ocarina is like its own thing. It definitely doesn't have that feel anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like what was cool about Ocarina of Time is mysticism. It felt like
Yeah,
we were
it felt mystical.
it felt mystical. Whereas in this game, you have your like your magical tablet that's left behind by the ancient people that you access and can do. It's like so you're some kid like outside with your cell phone. That's like
Yeah.
basically what's happening.
Yeah, that's too. It's not depth. There's no depth.
Yeah,
And I
there's-
think that's what happened also with Pokemon. Kind of got like that, where it like used to be more of like a fantastical. Like you had the Pokedex, but you were still like meeting people
Yeah, it
in
was
like
about
this world.
discovery and exploration. Then it became about combat between
And now it's just
animals.
about-
And there's
like-
so many Pokemon versions out there.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It's weird because my friend moved away in '89 when I was a kid, and he had the Nintendo system.
Yeah.
So all the Nintendo games I played were over his house. So I played Castlevania 1 and 2, and then I never got to play Castlevania 3. So now I just got Castlevania 3 on the 3DS.
Nice.
And I hate to admit that I've been stuck on the same board for 3 months. I can't get past listening to the same
Can we
music.
talk about games that do that?
Yeah.
Same music.
So
I
funny.
can't get past it because it's too. There's no way to re-get your life. It's like
Right.
the one where you're fighting a dragon thing where the tail drops
Yeah.
off, and then you pass that, and then there's a flood, and you're still not done. So in other words, if you'll continue from each board,
Right.
but if you lose all 3 lives, you go back to the beginning of like the 4 boards.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I can get past board 1 and 2 and get to the 3rd. But then there's no way I can get past to the fourth board. So then once my lives go down to 0, I gotta do the whole thing over again.
Oh,
See?
maddening.
So,
Yeah.
like, we should talk about games from this aspect of, like, there's so many games that have that aspect of, like, if you're dead, you're dead. And that makes the game very, like, it's a whole different
Intense.
feeling
Which I
from a
like.
game
I
that,
like
like,
games like
spawns
that.
you instantly and it, like,
And
keeps
this
you
one's in
going.
between. It doesn't spawn you from the beginning of the game, but it spawns you like it spawns you back about 3 levels. When you die totally, you go back about 3 or 4 levels to the beginning of the world. This world is so hard to pass. I can't pass the world.
Wow,
I can
yeah.
pass the board, so if I have 3 lives left and then I'm down to 2, I'll continue from the board I'm on.
See?
But once my
Yeah.
lives are at 0, I got to start from that particular world. I've been stuck in that world for 3 months.
And there's so many games that, like, I feel like
Yeah.
I put it aside after that, and I'm like, I'd rather just start a new game, come back to that, maybe it'll magically work. Like, when I come
Exactly,
back-
yeah.
But it's like sucks. I want to finish it. There's so many games I haven't finished because of that.
Yeah, you get stuck on them forever.
That actually happened one time to me when I was playing Ocarina of Time, where I was at the water temple, where you have to carry the princess around inside the fish.
Oh, yeah.
And for some reason, my game must have glitched because you know when you're supposed to put her down and she goes through the
Right.
fish, I guess. I put her down and she just like did not reappear on the other side. And the whole thing is to get her to her dad.
Right.
So I'm like, I can't even progress the story.
Well, I
now.
didn't even figure that part out. That took me like 5 months to figure out you're supposed to carry her into the fish.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even know what you were supposed to do.
See, that's the other great part
Yeah.
of it is like, it's just like that
So
kind
it's
of
like
system.
sometimes you don't even know what you're supposed to. At least you knew what you're supposed to do.
Mm.
I'm standing there going, okay, there's this fish. Now what do I do? Like, I didn't even know what the next step was in that game.
When you're ready to take like your gaming like I feel like the next game that did that for me, like after Ocarina, like
Yeah.
that feeling was definitely Elder Scrolls Morrowind. It was
yeah.
Morrowind. And like it was for Skyrim for a lot of people. Like a lot of people had that experience with Skyrim. I had that experience the game prior because it was a lot of reading. Like in Skyrim there's a lot of dialogue talking.
Yeah.
But in Morrowind, there wasn't like a lot of voice acting for games. Like only some of the characters did voice acting, and you have to do tons and tons of reading dialogue to discover how the story progressed. And like you could like talk to the NPCs, but then it would open up this like block, right, or this menu, and on the side it would give you like topics that you would pick from that you would bring up to each person, and the topics you had ended up being like 50, 60
Yeah.
topics, and you ended up having to ask each person each single one, right, depending on what you think they know. What like it's really cool, and then they would start telling you about new things, and
Oh my god.
after a
There's so many
certain
different ways
string
you
of
can go,
topics,
yeah.
after a certain
Yeah.
string of topics, that unlocks like the rest of the quest, which gives you items,
Yeah.
which then leads you to dude. It's
You bring up
Okay.
the one thing and they're like, oh, do this thing for me now.
And that
Like,
came out in like 98 or 99 or something?
yeah, that was like right. That was the game I think that really pushed that RPG element
We gotta play
to the
that
next step.
sometime.
Morrowind, definitely.
Yeah, we'll play that together.
We
And you know
definitely-
what? Another one that I loved was Diablo.
Oh, Diablo. is
And I
so
always
good.
wanted to play Diablo 2.
You never got to play Diablo 2?
No, because it was on the. So I've been dying to play that. That's the game I really want to play. It's just going down through the levels till you got to hell.
Do you have a computer? Do you have a computer?
I don't have a
Feel free
laptop. I
to
have
take
a
one of those
iPad.
seats. So
Ah.
this is Dan,
Yeah.
What's up, Dan? What's up, bud?
Chris, Kevin. You know
How you doing,
me.
man? Nice to meet you.
How's it going? Orange soda. Okay, Kel.
Needed some there.
We're actually talking about video games right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about Diablo.
2.
Yeah, Diablo 2 is
Great.
something I wanted to play because I played the original Diablo. Really cool. Going down the levels and levels
Yeah.
until you get to the devil himself.
There you go. Do you want to introduce Dan
Yes.
to our chat?
Yeah, so this is our camera, and this is the live stream.
Oh,
Would you like to introduce yourself? Just maybe say something about yourself, I don't know.
I am Dan, and the treadmill is the hamster's illusion of exercise.
That's a great one.
Very good.
Very good.
I thought of that on the way over. I didn't know what we were going to be talking about, but I kind of had something like that in mind.
Yeah. What inspired that?
What inspired that? I was at the gym, and I was thinking about how everyone in a gym has no idea that people are starving.
Right.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Because they're all just there and they're working out and they're eating their foods, but like there's people struggling, you know?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, I'm just like, it's like running on a treadmill doesn't prepare you for like real exercise, you know?
Yeah.
Like, of the earth's terrain.
Yeah.
And you box yourself in this cage and you're just running on this fake wheel. It's like, it doesn't really prepare your body for any real
Because
terrain.
there's a slippage. Like every time you
Yeah.
take a step, It's not like the real ground moves under your feet. So you're only
Yeah,
getting like
right?
a half workout almost.
And it's like a flat road, you know. It's not
Yeah.
like
Immersing yourself in nature and going to climb a mountain.
your actual exercise. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, your nature.
Yeah.
no pebbles on the trim.
That's why we gotta get back. Everyone should be farming or like being outdoors more at least. But
Which I'm not trying to change the subject, but you brought this up.
Sorry.
I've been hearing that New Jersey grows 2/3 of the world's eggplants.
oh,
Wow.
That's
eggplant-
66% of the eggplants, more than one
The
source
world.
on the
Wow.
world. It could be wrong, but 66%. They say 66% of the eggplants in the world are grown in New Jersey.
They should call us the eggplant
The
state.
eggplant state,
That'd be
yeah.
so funny.
Eggplant farm
But
sandwich.
how? Like, what makes us so special that we can only grow eggplants here? This is something with the climate. I think it's more South Jersey, but
I think it's it's the climate,
terrain.
in combination with how close we are to the coast, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like if you go south, it gets maybe a little too hot. If you go definitely a little bit more north than here, too cold.
too cold.
Yeah.
Right, so like this must be that sweet spot.
And something with
you
the
know?
Atlantic Ocean too.
Yeah.
Why isn't it happening in Pennsylvania? So yeah,
Yeah, right.
Interesting.
That's what I think. It's just closer to the fresh water,
yeah.
right? Like New Jersey's being. To the
And it's
coast.
in the South where these huge big eggplant farms are.
There you go.
But that's why there's like eggplants all over the
garden
place.
state.
Yeah,
I mean, it makes sense. It's
Somebody's
Italian eggplant farm.
yeah, eggplant
Right.
farm.
Eggplant
John,
farm.
Yum.
That makes sense.
Delicious.
Just a lot of Italian food.
Yeah.
Eggplants are good.
But yeah, exercise culture. It's funny. That's like a strange mindset, right? Like,
Well, I think
Scrumpy,
it's something that
like-
tries to subvert people's insecurities in our time, right? Like it's like the classic trope, like in the movie American Beauty, right? Like the first
Oh,
thing he
when he's
does to
working out?
fight his insecurity is to start working out. You know, and I think that right now it's like there are a lot of like strange
want to be on our
insecurities.
show? No. Okay, bye.
I'm sorry.
It's
Bye.
okay.
Anyway, so you know, we have a lot of like insecurities that come from narratives that we don't really either get to pursue or that we are not accomplishing correctly, and then by taking care of something like really primal, like going to the gym, we feel like maybe we're taking steps towards the right thing, but maybe that's just like sabotaging by giving you like natural
Endorphins,
forms of
yeah.
endorphins and stuff like that to sabotage you from actually like going outside, you know, and like doing those same things and participating in the actual cleansing of your like mental health, you know.
Well, I think the endorphins are real.
Yeah.
What you're saying is true.
Yeah.
But at the same time, any challenge we overcome or feel like we overcome
Yeah.
gives us a sense of accomplishment.
Totally.
So what so the accomplishment is real. But if they went out and hiked through the woods, and
Deeper.
that would also be
Yeah.
It's deeper.
that would be a
That's
sense of
like
accomplishment.
the weather's going to be different. Like each time you go to hike somewhere.
Oh yeah.
And it's not the same
Right.
treadmill in the
Controlled
gym.
conditions.
Controlled conditions. So it's also that that's also like you coming back to nature and that kind of
And nature has a
unpredicted-
very pure vibration, especially after dark.
And you know, if a gym just didn't charge like $50 a month,
That too.
Yeah.
it would probably be a bit more convenient, you know, because it's one thing to just do normal exercises at your house, like push-ups and sit-ups, you know, but it's like sometimes you want to add more weight to it, or like you want to work out a muscle you wouldn't really know that you could work out. So that's where a gym would kind of be good, but they just charge money.
Yeah,
and that's
that's
kind of
just
like,
That's why planking is excellent. Planking is when you hold a position.
Oh yeah.
And I talked to this guy who was like your
That's really good
size.
for you.
And I said, okay, is it hard for someone who's like really light? Because it's the weight, like bigger guys, obviously. He said, oh yeah, instead of being hard in 30 seconds, he goes, I'll plank a position for 4 minutes. He goes, but after 4 minutes, he goes, every muscle in my body is burning.
Yeah.
So you just hold your arms like this, and you on your toes, almost like a push-up
I
position,
took
but
a
you
dance
don't
class where she
move.
made us do that every beginning of the dance
You're
class
getting
and,
an
like,
intense
time
workout. If you can
yourself.
hold that for
Planking.
5 minutes.
Yeah, planking, strengthen your core. Because it's like dance, right? She's
Yeah.
like, oh, strengthen your core. Let's plank.
Yeah,
every
try
day.
holding a plank for 5-6 minutes.
That's
You don't
hard.
need to go to the gym.
Challenge accepted.
You just stay home.
Yeah.
You'll get a workout, believe me.
Check
Your
it out.
head doesn't explode.
All right, maybe my head will.
But yeah, unpreparedness that's kind of scary, you know, especially if people see like whatchamacallit, like activity, meaning like bodily activity as like a part of their day, not just incorporated into like maybe a little bit of like everything that they do. That's like that's just like so detached from being a natural being.
It's like this routine thing. We always
being
get
like,
caught
I'm
in
going
these-
to move 20 meters at 3 o'clock today. That's
Yeah,
gonna be-
control.
you know,
I'm
it's
gonna
like
feel great afterwards.
Yeah.
Desire for
feeling your
control.
own nature is important, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, if you're cooped up in a box, it's like a hamster, you know? It's like you give them this ball so they can, like, move their bodies, but that in and of itself is an illusion because they're just rolling in a ball. You know, they're
Yeah.
not really feeling what it means to actually be a hamster.
That's true.
Actually be a hamster.
It's like
Yeah.
they're just caged hamsters, like a disciplined dog or
Yeah.
something, you know?
Mhm.
I don't mind it if they're keeping the real the rest of the day, but there are some people who go to the gym for 15 minutes and then the rest of the day they don't exercise at all. So it's like they'll do the treadmill and they're like, nah, I can do nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Which will just make you more of like saggy bread. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't actually do anything for you.
Yeah, and it's also something you need to like keep up. If you're going to be committed to like whatever you're using exercise to do, you can't just like do it and then be like, man, I'm going to stop forever and it's going to stay like that forever and I'm going to be like
Yeah.
healthy forever.
You gotta maintain that.
Yeah, and that's also a whole commitment. That's like, you know, almost
Right.
being in a relationship. You're being in a
It's
relationship with your
so-
gym.
It's so weird that we're mentioning
bad
this
stuff.
now. 'Cause
Yeah.
What is it, February 8th? This is around the time of the year that most people break their New Year's resolutions and give up exercising.
Wow.
So, like,
I love how that can be monitored.
Statistic, yeah.
It's like, if by mid-February everyone sucks,
Yeah,
and they
it's-
fail, you are failure.
6 weeks.
Right?
But they-
At least we accomplished a podcast.
Yeah, bam!
But they're saying,
We are winners.
but they're saying you change one thing. That's what the problem is. When people change one action, it's not enough. They say you got to try to change. To transform, you got to change like that. Let's say you have 8 bad habits. You change one, it'll last for a while, but then the 7 bad habits you still have. So you start eating healthy, but you're still like, ooh, I love the donut or the pizza. Eventually, the side quest of eating the pizza.
The side quest of desire.
It's like
came
sometimes
up.
mentally, mentally people are like, okay, I'm never gonna eat like chips again, but then I need to like put something in place of that, so I'm just gonna eat double the ice cream.
Exactly,
instead. Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
That's
Which
exactly
makes no
what
sense,
happens.
but then
yeah.
it's like, of course it makes sense.
If you got money, it doesn't make sense. But like, if you're hungry and there's like
Yeah.
nothing, and you got
When that craving hits, there's no
you
way.
gotta eat something.
There's no way to avoid it. Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
But yeah,
Whoa.
pointlessness of physical activity to me is just like, that's a very future concept. You
If
know?
you can make
What are you
something
talking
last
about?
long term, I
Sometimes,
think hiking can do that.
Oh,
and
I love
swimming can do that.
hiking.
And there's some people in the gym that can make it last long term. But if that's the only thing you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like those people are the ones that conk out the first. Because as soon as they leave the gym,
Mm-hmm.
they're not doing anything else in nature. They're not doing anything. They're just doing it. They almost feel like, oh God, no pain, no gain. I have to do this.
yeah.
That- almost
and
gotta be fun.
It's kind of like the economy in a sense. If there's one direct output of income, then if that shatters, you're done.
You're
you know?
done.
Yeah.
There's nothing else.
It's kind of like that with exercising. It's like when you only have that place where you exercise and you don't go there and you're like, "Ugh," then you're just not like your lifestyle, your being. is
you're
not
putting all your eggs in
exercise,
one
you see.
basket. When that basket tips over.
It's like you got to incorporate that kind of lifestyle into everything you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the secret to success. If you can make it
Your
whole
lifestyle.
lifestyle, anything you do, making money, exercise,
Your being.
then when the one route falls apart, you still have the other routes.
And that's what I think is like comes back to like establishing a personal philosophy because
Yeah.
like no matter what the actions you choose to do will hopefully fall in your philosophy somehow. So even if it's like, you know,
The authentic belief behind it is going to keep it going.
yeah. So
Whether
like,
if you're
yeah.
being phony about it, how long, or you're trying to push you out of your comfort zone, how long does that last?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you can
Definitely.
transform yourself in the process, it's not impossible, not easy.
Yeah, transformation's very hard, especially alone to
Mm.
do it, you know, and then all you have is like the internet showing you what all the
The
billions of people are
Wikipedia.
doing.
Your
and
own
you're like,
thoughts, just like
and
no
it's
one's
like
really
choose
there.
one, be
Yeah.
one, and you're like, can I just be myself? No, you have to choose one of these people to be, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh my
exactly.
god.
I think a lot of our anxiety neuroses come from us trying to be an archetype rather than just being.
Mainly the individual feeling overwhelmed by gossip and typecasts and expectation.
Yeah.
It's about just kind of the individual just being comfortable
being.
with what is.
Yeah, just being.
Just being.
Yeah, it seems so simple.
Whatever you harnessed in these, like...
Yeah,
beings,
yeah.
Being
you
your
know?
true
That's
self.
what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Finding what our true self is without the gossip.
Yeah.
Without the comparing, without all this chatter going on. What is the true you when no one's watching?
Perhaps it's
myself
just
that
a
all the
you,
time.
you know, not even like a true you, because that also creates some kind of expectation.
Yeah, that's true too.
If it was just you and self, then there'd be like,
Yeah, right.
you know?
Yeah.
It wouldn't have to be
You
more
would
than
know
that.
weight.
It doesn't have to be more than that.
It really does.
It really
And I
does.
think there's like a whole group of people though that find like their comfort comes from like being like melting into this like collective like sheeple thing, but out of like safety, like no one like, oh, I'm so mysterious, no one knows who I am, but like on the outside they're like every other sheeple person.
Yeah,
Because it's like it's more comfortable to kind of just like lay low and not be who I am because
Dare
like,
to
us-
melt and feel the cheese. Like.
yeah. But then again, I think it comes back to what we started this discussion with your basic needs, right? Because in a way, those people must be just like lacking the deeper personal connection, which is why they'll just be friends with anyone without like, you know.
So
A
describe
lack of
this.
connection to true nature.
Yeah.
Describe this person. So the person you're saying who lays low, but at the same, they're trying to be mysterious, but at the same, they're trying to conform. How do they accomplish both? Because the
So I feel like socially, they may like give up being their true individual self to just be accepted by them, those around them, because it's least effort to them to have to like.
and then where's
be
the
a
mystery
person.
part come
And
in?
it's easier to be plastic.
And I think that to deny all those negative things that I just like mentioned,
Yeah.
that they'll hide it by saying, "Oh, I just don't want people to know who I am. I'm mysterious."
Oh,
But it's
okay,
like it's because you don't know who you are. That's why
Yeah,
they're
that's what it
saying
is.
that.
They're telling the
but they'll be
truth.
defensive and they'll be like,
But
"No."
most people are
Yeah.
most people again I think are stuck on the fourth tier of Maslow's hierarchy again. So it's like food and shelter, love and belonging, self-esteem. No, there's
But
something
remember,
else.
those two
It's
can
food and
go in
shelter.
a lot of different.
But the
cover
fourth
a
one
lot
is
of ground.
self-esteem
Yeah.
before self-actualization. That's mostly what I'm trying to get to. Is like most people like get involved in their community and they sort of like develop their ego a little bit so that they can have a sense of self-esteem. But just because you have self-esteem, I realize as I get older, doesn't mean that you know who you are. You know, it doesn't mean that you know anything about
Because there's
anything.
deeper layers.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Really.
so much our real higher self. There's so much awareness. Awareness and intelligence are not the same thing. You could be very intelligent in
Nice.
a narrow field, but awareness is being aware of what you don't even know now. You're not even thinking about. It's a subject you have not even studied.
Yeah.
So no disrespect on
It's like being
intelligence. You can't
open
be
to it,
exactly.
rather than already knowing that down the line, if someone says this concept, I'm shutting it down. We're not talking about
Exactly,
it.
right.
I'm against it.
Right.
Yeah.
Your openness to new things.
It's like
Yeah.
intelligence is like more experience based. Like I have intelligence because I've had a set of experiences, not because of how aware I am.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Awareness, intelligence doesn't make you open to the things you don't know is a thing. You could be the most intelligent person in the world in math and have no idea about this other subject, and you're not even curious to look at it, but awareness will say, wait a minute, what is this over here?
Yeah.
Right.
And now you're starting to notice things you never noticed before.
These
That's what-
paintings are done by
Yeah,
our
like
friend
these
Austin.
paintings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's great.
I was like, what the hell?
He is awesome. Very great artist. Austin, we love your art. I don't know where you are.
Thank you. I'll be right there.
Okay.
You said that an hour ago. No.
Yeah. But yeah,
Um,
Austin's art.
Now, like, what about like we put something on Facebook and then nobody likes the comment. And now you're like, wait a minute, no one liked my comment. What's going on here? It's like, and everyone's getting paranoid because no one liked their comment or no one made a good.
Yeah, this
like,
is actually something I learned the other day when I
Yeah.
was tripping in the diner. I was looking at my
Oh,
phone.
you tripped through the doorway?
I was in the diner, yeah, tripping. I tripped into the diner. So I was looking at my phone, you know, and like me and my friend, we were just sitting, and he was sitting across from me, and I just kind of came across this thought, you know, because like, no, he actually said it. He's like, people actually care about this shit, like likes. And I'm
Yeah,
just
right.
like, dude, you're so right. And then like
Right.
he went to the bathroom, and I just started writing notes in my phone, and I'm just like, people become so absorbed by this social media and the likes
Yeah.
that they actually forget themselves, like they're
Yeah.
actual just being,
Man.
when they just simply like they forget that they like a photo because they just like it.
Right.
I think that
but
what-
they like it in
Yeah.
sort of
There are
automated
different reasons
kind of
why
way.
I-
like
I
it.
know what
Yeah,
you're saying.
I think that
exactly.
they've accepted the quantification of their life that
Bam.
they put on the internet.
Yeah.
Like they're accepting that they're going to be reduced to a number, you know,
Right.
in a way, and that it's going to be reflected by a number.
Just a photo.
And it's like, do you want
Right.
to play this game? Try and get as many numbers as you can, and the whole
Yeah.
world will love you. You'll get all these like people wanting to
And
sleep
some
with
of
you.
it's algorithm
Crazy
based.
stuff.
Like people aren't even
Crazy
seeing
stuff.
the
It's crazy.
It's like get
and
make
the only
money
reason they're
from
not liking
home
it is
and
it's not
sleep with
popping
people.
up.
And you're just like,
The millennial ideology,
They don't
people.
have really good qualities.
Right.
it is in a way.
Like
That's literally a banner. Just
Like,
make
okay,
money
so if we
from
think
all-
about the algorithm of Instagram, the fact that like if you post enough pictures every day, that companies will reach out to you and be like, because you post every day so much and so many people see you and they love you and all this, start selling our product. Now you're becoming a quantifiable like machine that sells
Right.
like nonsense products. Like
Yeah.
drink this tea to lose weight. It's just
Yeah.
like not even meaningful product, not even your product that you make. It's
Yeah.
somebody else's product
yeah.
using you, and I'm just like,
Like, you know, Smosh.
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 Yeah, I
They,
love
they
Smosh.
fucking sold out. You know?
Right?
And they,
It's so
they got
sad.
Pop-Tart commercials now.
One thing I wanted to elaborate on in your comment, Barbara,
Sorry, that was
is
cheated.
is what actually the first, I think, the foundational step of all the things you just talked about is that we believe that high numbers, not even what they mean, not even what a high number of what, B's, doesn't matter, high numbers has more value than the individual person.
Right.
Like, we have a psychological, like, attachment to the idea that lots of numbers is more
Good.
than
Yeah.
the individual, which often not true, right?
Maybe it's in
the
concept,
human, in the
right?
human
Of
sense of
infinity?
it, like I, the human individual, one have an unlimited set of
Yeah.
abilities and experiences, but in juxtaposition to like 3,000 likes that this other human person has, like these that are just actually random integers or markers, right? All of a sudden that makes us feel like less than 3,000 likes, you know? But doesn't mean anything actually.
But sometimes
It
it's the
is
person's
possible.
fame.
What?
It is possible, from what you just said, that
Yeah.
we might be entering a phase in consciousness where we will soon break into absolute chaos. Because you just
I
said
totally
it.
think
You
that.
just said
I
it.
definitely
You said
think
we
that.
are an individual being with unlimited creative potential, yet for
Right.
some reason we are reduced to this box and
Yeah.
these numbers. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like soon it will break and we'll just be like,
Yeah.
and it'll be animalistic
to
again.
Pandora's
Right,
box.
right,
The more
right.
we
You know, because
Right.
we're not aware of it, and we
Yeah.
reduce ourselves to these
Yeah.
numbers, but we
I'll
have
give-
so much more potential that
Right.
it will almost like become overwhelming.
Yeah.
Well, it depends
That
on
is what
source.
that. I think what you're
Yeah.
talking about right now is actually what's happening right this moment.
Yeah, the
for a
financial-
lot
we're
of
breaking
people,
down. We're
not
going-
just
Yeah.
here, like in this room,
I
but
agree.
for a
On Earth,
lot of
yeah.
people, right? That exact thing is happening because everyone is addicted to media, like everyone.
Apple's
and so
almost
it's
$1
so
trillion
boring.
company.
It's so normal for everyone to be addicted to media that it's not even a thing.
There's not
Right.
even ADD.
And so that's
There's
what's
no such
happening,
thing as
what you're
ADD because we're
describing.
all ADD.
Right,
Yeah.
So there's,
exactly.
it's no relative.
And we'll soon all be blind.
Probably.
I think
Yeah.
this is why today I was talking with one of my friends about technology and education
Yeah.
and how we're seeing a lot of I'm seeing especially like it taking over that naturally like communal like aspect that is education of like socializing and like having a human to human interaction. I feel like because what you just said about numbers and something that's being obsessed with an addiction
Yeah.
to numbers, that like the places you would hope would challenge these ideas such as like the like education, like I'm saying, because it has that human aspect of it, are kind of just giving up and being like, let's just follow the the school is even following the trends
Academic
and
spaces,
like
art spaces.
filling in the human stuff with like these really like not helpful like technologies.
And there's shortcuts. And what's
They are
what's thing is
shortcuts.
that when I went through meditation, one thing that came through to me in awareness is, did you ever like when you got, because you guys are in your 20s, did you ever wonder like what the other town that your sports team was going to play, what the kids were like in that school,
Always, yeah.
and what it would be like
Always
to meet
The
them?
different.
I never cared about that.
Yeah, I always thought about like.
Okay.
I
I'm
know
not
where
saying that's
someone
in
else
the-
lives or like
No,
what
but
someone else's
please.
distance
I used to
is.
think about that driving on the
now with-
highway.
but think about that's what that it's like where you had a crush on someone in another town, or you wanted to meet the girl from Nutley.
Yeah,
Because for us in Bloomfield, it was like, oh my God, the girls in Nutley, what are they like? You know, it's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
whole different
Like a
world
whole
over there.
Yeah.
Now with Facebook, it's like the mystery's gone. Okay,
Wow.
there they are.
Yeah, there's no magic.
There they are, and they're like, hey, okay, yeah, here's me in the bathroom. Okay, where's the magic? Like, the mystery
magic.
of seeing the person in the house, and like you're wondering what they
Yeah,
are from
man.
far away, or they
Yeah.
turn a corner and you get. Now they're on Facebook. Okay, now my dog had to go to the bathroom. Like, all the mystery's gone.
All the mysteries.
gone.
I agree. Well, okay, so I think
The
Everything's
romance of
instruction.
life.
Yeah.
Finished.
I
So
agree.
that's
Where
what
the
you gotta get
candles?
out there
Yeah.
and meet real people.
Yeah.
that's why
it's almost
I
like
do
Do
that.
it in real life.
It's almost like, you know, with concerts, you know. I was noticing this when I was listening to some, like, Bach. You know, I bought this.
What's up,
organ.
Austin?
Austin.
How you doing,
Please
guys?
take
How
a
you doing?
seat.
Yeah.
This is Austin.
Yo,
What's cracking, man?
That's the camera right there if you want to wave at it.
sup, camera? What's up?
This is Dan,
Vegan
Kevin.
oatmeal
How you doing?
or vegan yogurt ready to go.
We
Dan,
were
Nice.
admiring your
I'm
art.
Kevin.
Kevin,
Dan.
Dan,
You know us.
Austin, Barbara,
Chris, Barbara.
Chris.
Camera.
People, hello.
We did it!
People, ask us some hard questions.
Oh yeah, let me
Oh,
see what's up. Let me see
Chris
what's
is-
up.
Some
the
trick
person
questions.
talking?
This is the first one. They're not asking us a trick question.
Well,
Alright,
right now we're talking about
The magic.
the
so,
magic.
Oh, I
I
was
was
gonna say
listening.
about
I
this
was
too.
listening to this record in the dark, right?
Yeah.
Ooh,
And I
which
had-
one?
It was some Bach compositions by
great.
this composer. I bought it in the Catskills. It
Cool.
was just a straight organ, like
Yeah.
A and B side. And I
Oh,
had some
cool.
candles lit, and it was just dark, you know. And I was, it was
That
just
sounds
like,
nice.
and I'm imagining this, and I'm thinking about concerts now, where it's like they have the LED lights, and it feels magical, but the music and the environment and the ambiance of the here and now really brought some kind of magic
Oh,
to
yeah.
that, you know?
Yeah.
Because it was the music and the candlelit ambiance
Yeah,
of the audience, and like this one person just orchestrating like 30 people. And it's just in this dark candlelight, you hear this epic gothic tone.
To me, that's alchemy.
Right, and
Right.
it's being created in that moment. But
Yeah,
now
yeah.
it's like, you know, it's like the Super Bowl, for instance, was a piece of crap. That halftime show, it's like when Michael Jackson in 1993 was singing "We Are the World," he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
But now it just felt completely like plastic.
Well, I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
people
yeah.
now don't go to
Definitely.
an event to experience the event. They want to go to the event to show everybody
They said
else.
they were
They
there.
were
Check
They
it
want
off
to
the
have
box.
the best recording of the video so that they'll have the most numbers on their YouTube or Instagram of the
Yeah.
video. And like they didn't even appreciate the music. My coworker and I talk about this all the time because she really liked to go to like Suzette. She liked to go to concerts back in like the 60s and 70s, like real music. And now it's just all like phones on the stage. You
Yeah.
can't even like hear the person.
One of the, I think, was it Janet
And
Jackson
everyone
had
sings
to
along too.
shut down her
Yeah.
concert. She
really
said,
loud.
if you guys are going to keep staring at your cell phones, then I'm not going to sing.
Mm-hmm.
So like everyone was looking at their cell phones, but she was getting up on stage, so she took out her cell phone and just started going like this.
Like I think it's like certain occasions
audience was
to
like,
like
Yeah.
commemorate like your experience, but like I feel like a concert is like you're saying like an experience. Like
Don't you
go
want
for
to
the
remember it
experience.
intensely?
Yeah.
Like, do you go down a water slide and film the water slide? You want to remember going down the water slide. You want to remember it in the moment. I feel like when we're recording everything, we're like just thinking about what it's going to look like to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're 100% in that memory, turn the cell phone off, just go on the roller coaster, do the thing.
Yeah.
You get
There's
much
no
more.
monetization then.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Right.
again, the cheddar. That's
all
all.
about
That's
the
what
cheddar.
it's all
Yeah,
about.
we want to just make sure that everybody, like these young kids, we got to raise them, start them early. We want to monetize everything.
Yeah.
Everything you do is money.
That's
Yeah.
for sure.
And that's the only thing that matters
It's true.
in the end.
So it
I
comes
did want
down
to
to that.
I did want to go down the tangent of magic of meeting people or like the mystery of meeting people. To me, that is every time, like on a more practical level, every time you meet someone, you begin a new language with them. Okay, so you and I have a language that
Yeah.
began at the coffee shop in Bloomfield. So
Yeah,
we have an
always.
understanding of reality between you and me specifically
Mhm.
because we have started a particular type of dialogue. Same with me and Barbara. Same with
Same.
me
We
and Austin.
have one that spans a really long time
Right.
too.
That is
True, yeah.
totally destroyed when your friendship is primarily through the conversation of Facebook, right? That narrative
Because you
aspect.
can't read the personality. You can't. I mean, you
So
can put up a
many
little
reasons.
happy face, but that doesn't
So
sell the
many
tone.
reasons.
But it's also, I think, sharing an experience with someone that builds
Right.
that story. So, like, you two being in that coffee shop, remembering the setting and, like, how things looked when you were talking, and, like, as opposed to just, like, typing, yeah, I did this, or, like, not even telling each other that you're doing it. It's just, like,
Yeah.
the moments that you share are, I think,
Are what create the narrative
Oh,
of
that.
magic.
Yeah.
I remember
Right.
with him the intelligence, but the flexibility. Because I met people who, as their knowledge rate goes up, they get more inflexible.
Yeah, it's true.
And
It's
for
hard.
some
It's
reason with
getting hard
you,
for me now. I'm getting older.
He's
It's
like
hard.
gets the knowledge and he had the flexibility at the same time to not get stuck fixed in your ways.
And
It's hard.
I'm struggling. I'm fighting that at every moment. When I start to see myself building a wall, like I immediately start to chisel it down because like it's ego. That's what that is. What you're describing
Yeah.
is like with intelligence comes ego. You know you're like you have had the right experiences to acquire. You have a certain amount of willpower all the time that you can just keep going at, and that creates that ego. You know, that's what creates those intellectual like. That's
And the
what
patterns,
barriers,
routine
the patterns is that is the most that is the scariest thing.
Yeah.
Patterns and habits are like two things that like to take control of or even notice. I think you have to be self-actualized.
I never thought I'd
You
live
know?
to the day where the coffee shop, and I love coffee, Dunkin'
Yeah.
Donuts coffee would replace the nightclub. And there have been Friday nights where my friends
Wow.
were like, let's just get a cup of coffee.
Yeah, right. It's
I'm
funny.
like, let's go to the nightclub. They're like, let's just get a cup of coffee. Now I'm like,
subordinated
let's get a cup
culture.
of coffee.
We live in a
It's like I'm
subordinated
falling into
culture.
the same trap. It's like the
Yeah.
comfort is replacing the.
Yep.
There comes a point in life where you either have to choose excitement or comfort.
Right.
But there's a fork in the road. It's either comfort or excitement. You can't have both. If
I-
you go to the bar where the DJ is
He's right.
awesome and there's a big crowd and you're worried about getting a seat, you go to a bar where there's no DJ and there's no music and it's boring, but you will get a seat.
Yeah, right.
You know, I
It's
wanted
a choice.
to bring up something about, like, you know, the whole thing regarding, like, Facebook and the magic. It's kind of like me and my cousin, right? Like, we have that language, you know. He goes like, God! And then, like, I'm just like, Jesus! Like, you know,
Right.
we
No, that is-
over-exaggerated things.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
And he commented on a picture I took in Florida, like, in his guest room. And he just, you know, he put G and then he put like maybe 40 O's and then it went D. And I'm like, what are you doing on Facebook, man? You don't fit that emotion in like 40 O's. You gotta be here for that.
Yeah, you gotta
know?
do it in
Right.
person.
So it's
He's
like, it's
trying,
like,
but-
I remember I was talking about it with my friend Rob, and I was like, yeah, cousin just doesn't belong on Facebook. But now you like just put it into words. It's like, yeah, it's the magic.
Right.
So,
It's that actual narrative you have together, right? Which is like
man.
you can't really translate that onto like
But
weird
what's
symbols
funny is
on the
because
screen.
you could probably do that with a phone call. We don't even want to speak to each other.
Yeah, because you're hearing in the phone call,
Yeah.
you're hearing
Right.
the tone of voice and everything.
Right, and that's why
Yeah.
people avoid it because they can actually read how people are psychically trying to communicate with you, as opposed to guessing how they're communicating with you
Like
via
implying
text.
your own.
Right,
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
it's like
bias.
music, you know, when you
Right.
listen to it, the sound triggers your mental state to feel in that same way because
Right.
everything's a mirror.
Yeah.
So whatever you attract to is just you attracting to it.
Mm-hmm.
And,
That's your
um,
perception of it.
And what were we talking about?
But
My
that's
thing
true
is,
in general.
think about you go to the house party and there's a chance to meet new people there and new conversations that you never had and everybody's a little buzzed. Facebook is the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me what your story
And
is.
it's
the puritanical church.
And I
It's
think
the
it's a
pure-
purity. Like there's something about purity with
It's
the
the
internet,
puritanical church.
Yeah.
where you can't even like have like an organic discussion, like meeting new people and just be like, hey, and getting to understand what they like, and it just like flows from there. It's like I have to be aware of all the things I shouldn't say to these groups of people, like because of how they'll perceive it, and
Because
it's
you
like
can't,
very,
they can't hear the tone. You can put laugh out loud, but
yeah.
True.
But do you realize what we just discovered? That we just discovered why the excitement is missing, which means we can solve the problem.
Mm.
And even then, you know, looking at a screen depletes your dopamine.
I believe that. Yeah.
Do you
So it's
want
like,
Do you know more
by the
about
way?
that?
I'll
Do you
take
know,
water,
Do
yeah.
you know
This-
anything
this
about
is
that? Do you know why? Like why?
well, you know, I think it has something to do with light. You know, light's
Yeah,
a very
that makes
stimulating
sense.
object. So, especially, you know, with the constant likes, it's just like, I mean, it's all kind of like a subconscious ploy in a way.
Always,
You know, it's like
yeah.
you leave your phone over there. Thanks. You leave your phone over there, and if you hear it buzz, you immediately you just immediately.
Yeah,
you know,
right,
I don't even.
right. It's like
you know,
reactionary.
it's like
Yeah.
immediately. So that just looking at the phone and the light.
Right.
You know, you put it down and you're just like, oh man, you know, I wish things were as stimulating as this. And it was even weird to me
Yeah.
because I realized my brain is moving faster than it used to. I was reading Calvin and Hobbes,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just going through it, and it was like I already read the first page, and I was like, what the fuck just happened?
You're
And then
actually still going.
yeah,
It's like-
because you're used to the scrolling, so it's like you're used to just absorbing things fast.
Mm.
You know,
And
that's
I'm just
why I
like,
can't read right now. I'm having such a no, seriously.
I feel.
I used to love just sitting down and just reading and getting absorbed into like a whole nother world, but now it's
Right.
because when I sit down to read, I'm like,
Goes fast, yeah.
You know, and then I'm not even in it. Now I'm just like speeding through content, you know? Yeah.
And especially, you know, with the constant lights, just like
Oh, is it
altering
too
our
much in your
light.
face?
No, this is
Okay,
fine. I mean,
okay.
like, if you're like just trying to sit and focus, it's
Yeah.
like a light is attracting so much more to you. You know, that's why I
Yeah.
take off my glasses sometimes to just kind of like be with what
Yeah.
I'm focusing in.
That really helps me psychologically too, if someone wears glasses.
So if you wear like, you know, if you have like candle lights and things are like dark, you're able to like narrow your focus into the book. Because if you got candle lights and you're reading a book, it's just a book.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like you're in the book and you actually feel like there's something there talking to you.
Yeah.
That's why meditating can slow down your mind. If you meditate for 15 minutes, then read, it'll be a better experience.
Well, the
especially
problem-
before you go to sleep and when you wake up.
Yep.
That's the best time, they
Yeah.
say. It
And
gets into
most
your
people
subconscious.
instead replace that with their phone.
Right.
Yeah.
Damn.
Exactly.
Nice. Yeah, my meditation leads me to action. Once I'm in when I notice that I'm in that state where I'm like, I'm here now, I'm like, finally. And then that just like punches me back into doing things, you know?
That's
You like
great.
took your
Yeah.
power nap
Yeah.
for your brain, and you're like, I'm ready to go.
No, it's just, it does take like, it's like, you're like, all right, I need to meditate. And it's like, it does take some time to be like, okay, I'm here now. I'm here now.
It does take
you know?
time.
So I want to make
It's
a
weird.
comment
It's
about
like
the
stretching for your
phone.
mind.
It is stretching for
It
a while.
is.
Totally.
About checking the phone all the time, that like urge you were talking about, and you don't. It's like so unnatural. I think it's this like concept, like you were saying, that infinite like number like game type of thing. That
Yeah.
little box to us represents like an ongoing infinite black hole.
Jeez.
And then we feel so powerful to be able to pick it up, knowing that there will be brand new information that maybe even,
Infinite power
especially
information. That's what it
especially
is.
when you know when you see something, it's like just now, no likes, right? You're like, I'm the first person to ever see this.
Yeah.
Who the cares?
And then you find out
It's
later,
just like
later
weird.
like 20 minutes later,
Yeah.
that it actually was false.
Oh, that too.
And then like
It's
20,000
well,
people
is
shared it,
meaningless.
and it
is
almost became real
meaningless.
because 20,000
Because we
people
believed
believed
it to be.
No, that's the key. It's the belief.
But-
Power belief is really powerful.
Yes. So.
Well, people in Romania gotta make a living, Chris.
Well, someone's got it.
So let's throw a house party. Let's let's
Yeah.
crash a house party
Oh.
Yes.
and meet a whole bunch of new people. That's the answer.
All right, guys, let's go right now. In my car.
This is happening. This is a house
No.
party right now.
No.
We need to
This is
find
like a
one.
small house party.
Oh, this? Yeah, that's kind
There's a
of
frat in Wayne.
Yep.
Go right now.
No.
That's what the world is.
On a Saturday night. Dang. So what should we do? Do we have like more knitting circles? Like more productive
More
communal-
omniologists.
I think we need to find a way to meet people that we don't know,
Yeah.
but not online.
Okay,
I mean,
well,
we can
that's
meet
why.
them online and then meet them in real life, but we can't stay online. Have to
Okay,
get
so
off
my
that.
Then how do we tell the government who we're talking to?
Right.
They've got that figured out.
Yeah.
Do the satellites.
Hello, government. We know you're listening. They
Um,
hear the woo.
But okay, so
That's
wait.
fine.
What you're talking about? All right. About meeting people. The reason why this isn't happening right now is because a new illusion of safety has been given to us. Okay, so this illusion of safety comes from our ability to pigeonhole our perspective into a niche on the internet. So if I have one specific niche aspect of my personality that may have never actually developed before, it's just there, right? Now I can go on the internet and like totally expand that niche aspect
Of your personality.
of my personality, and
Attract a cult in a sense.
pretty much almost always.
And the more niche it seems to be, the faster it grows as a cult.
It actually
Example,
does.
furry culture, you know?
Jeez.
Yeah, furry culture, right?
Like, who would ever imagine that such a thing could grow so powerful?
No one
Right.
would guess.
But, you know,
Other than everybody else's-
lo and behold, you know, it's 2019 and there's a whole lot of poorly drawn cartoons of weird tranny animals on the internet doing stuff.
There you go.
People tuning into the inner animal.
That's
on a
right.
weird level.
That's right. With throbbing
Well,
animated
why did I bring this
genitalia.
up? Why did I bring this
All
up?
right, podcast. I'm kidding.
I forget why I brought this up.
Niche,
Niche groups.
It's preventing the meeting
Niche
in real
groups
life.
create furries.
Oh, right.
Yes,
Okay, so
yes,
okay, right.
yes.
So that creates a certain type of safety, right? I can now be a crazed furry, right? Which is like, you know,
Totally safe. Totally safe. Totally safe.
Crazed furries.
I'm not making judgments on furries. I'm just saying furries. There we go. That I use, you know, as a demographic. Anyway, but you can be a furry and be crazed, though. I'm gonna defend that. Anyway, so. Anyway, but that creates a certain feeling of safety that I can be this niche aspect of my personality. I can be that now because look at all these like 200 people in this small group on Facebook, which half of them are actually bots, but you don't know that, right? Like that makes me feel like I can be that way.
That gives you a complex.
And
though,
then
doesn't
those
it?
people who started to feel that way would go out into the
Like the
real
cool
world,
thing.
Yeah.
right? And they would try and be that person in the real world. They would get violently rejected, okay? Or like not totally violently. Some yes, violently, but
Psychologically,
It's
yeah.
safe for them
On a
in your group.
psychological, yeah, right.
Yeah.
They felt unsafe in their social setting. Okay, so
the internet just has multiple like connections, you know. Like,
right in the internet,
you could be in like Newark and have a following in Japan.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, and it can make you feel safer
Yeah.
in that sort of community than in your actual social physical community, right? But that's pretty much you're on the road to schizophrenia now because you are now being validated by something that's not actually there.
Well, you've
Right, it is
got
the
it that's
concept.
sporadic, spread out all over, but in that one page, they're all coming together.
Right,
you have
right,
people
right.
that are hundreds of miles apart
Yeah.
that are all in cyberspace on the same page.
Right.
But in
Right.
real life, you would never run into them.
And in your mind, you think you're part of a group with validating people, like in action, like and then eventually those people become the archetype of that person from the group. This happens in music scenes. That's where I'm using this example.
Yeah.
I've been very active in music in my life. Like so all of a sudden you become like the black metal extremist. Like you're really into black metal. All of a sudden you like that's the only music you listen to. You go outside and now you dress like a black metal god, pagan god or whatever, and that's just the way it is now.
You have a live goatee.
Yeah, right. Which actually can be good, I think. Like this is something that happens to people in reflective solitude. Like you come up with this archetype person that is the opposite of whatever your community or society is naturally. When you are in now you are in the PC safe space superculture, which is driven by numbers, and that is the only social space that is acceptable for all people. You go there, it's algorithmic, it's based on numbers, and it's totally niche and outside of anything that actually happens in reality.
Yeah.
And so people just it's really messed up when you guys
So,
think
but
about
what
it.
if we were to turn around to the place?
Right.
'Cause I remember a time before internet
Well, people
where you
don't
had
wanna
to
be
walk into
responsible.
a place and you didn't know anybody. It was hard to start off a conversation.
Yeah.
You had to work at it. Now you can go on to a site and see who's liking the Shannon Rose in Clifton.
Right.
And now you get to know that person online and say, let's all have a Shannon Rose meetup at the bar.
Right.
So now you're getting to know people and it's around the place that you already like
Yeah.
and
Right.
they like. And now you got to take it and make it real. You can't stay online forever. That's
Right.
the trap. Now you go to the bar and hey, I met you online, blah blah blah. And now so when you make it around the place, this can be an asset.
Yeah, right.
When you make it around a niche group, it backfires because then in
I
the real
agree.
world it doesn't apply.
I agree with what you're
I
saying.
want to just make
Yeah.
a quick reference to this book I've read before, Ishmael. 'Cause I feel like this has to do with primitivism in a way. How back in the day, primitive humans, we were seen as us versus the world, like nature in a way, right? Like we had to figure out how to not have nature kill us,
Yeah.
and now we see the world as our resource. That
Interesting.
the fact that's a tool, I think, using our sacred tablets, since you're talking about Breath of the Wild, to get us in the specific thing that we want from our life, which is to go to the Shannon Rose with specific people.
Yeah.
It's your dream to be I want to live out this aspect of my life, being this person who does that, and then you can do it because that allowed you to.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. In a way that before the internet, you had to do everything cold turkey. You had to walk up
Yeah.
to somebody, and I think that's good. But now, if you have an inn, you still have to do that when you get out there. You still have to conversate. But now you already know this is a place that people are going to be meeting at on this Saturday, the second Saturday of the month.
Yeah.
I'll be there at that time when they're going to be there. Whereas back in the day, you might have been there a day before and never ran into each other.
It's like emails, I can't tell you how many people, including myself, have over 2,000 unread emails.
Yeah, of course.
And today I made a new email because my one email is out of storage. And it's I was actually using it like I used my mail. And I was reading it and I'm like, all right, I'll just throw that out. It's people forget to throw out their mail. It's kind of like going back to looking at your phone and being absorbed in all that media and forgetting that you're actually liking a picture because you like it.
Yeah,
It's
it becomes the habit.
You're forgetting that this is just fucking online mail.
Yeah.
You gotta throw some of that shit out. It's just something.
That's a good point. I don't either. I don't throw it out either.
Well, it just becomes Well, it's just because it's not actually there.
And then, like,
It really
what I
is
said,
not
like
actually
what
there.
I said about making phone calls, that's
true.
what a phone
Yeah.
was for. We don't
Yeah.
even use it to
I
make
had-
phone calls anymore.
I had the opposite experience that
Yeah.
you did. I have a certain level of OCD, and so like with me, I needed to make sure that there was not even a single sight of a useless email in my inbox ever. Like as soon as I saw one, I was like delete, and it was like my inbox was almost always zero, as much as
Feels-
possible.
That's a
You know?
millennial thing, I think. You know.
Well, for me, it was OCD. It was control
Right.
over like the channel in which information was coming to me.
Right.
It's all
It's how
about
people
control.
should
Not,
be.
not every
Yeah.
millennial has that type
No.
of level of OCD,
No.
but that type of OCD is most prevalent in millennials. Where I feel
agree.
like it's, you know, like my parents are not capable of deleting all their emails like in
Right.
a regular habitual fashion. I mean, my mom keeps important files in the trash, thinking it's a folder, and then gets upset when like I, with my OCD, like actually take out her trash on her computer and delete her files. And she's like, "Oh, storing them there. What are you doing?" You know, like this is just like a disconnect between like you know.
Right.
But my generation is just we're too lazy. Like, I couldn't delete all the emails. It would take like 10,000 years. So
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
can't.
yeah.
Even if I was OCD, I'm like, how is this gonna do all this? There's like so many emails.
That's why I made a new one.
It's like if
was
I
very
don't,
weird that
I'm
shit.
gonna feel pain, right?
Yeah.
And while I'm doing it,
9 o'clock.
while I'm
okay.
doing it, I'm already feeling pain, you know. So it's like, and it's like I'm living this illusion that I think when I get to 0 in my inbox, I'm gonna feel not pain, but that's also an illusion.
Exactly.
Because as soon as I get one more email, the pain is back, and I gotta fix it.
you have to
You know, it's like-
constantly chasing perfection.
Yeah, right. So that is my spiral of OCD.
Mm.
You know, it's like
Emails.
it's the constant striving for making all of my situations as perfect as possible, and like one of them, you know, it happens
It's
to
a
be
small
email or
effort.
whatever.
Like it's a small effort. Like you can do. Like that's I'm the same way. I have to
Yeah.
admit that I literally do the same thing.
Yeah.
Just because it's like a small thing that like requires not too much of my effort. That is like the one little part of my day that like
Illusion of control.
the guarantee that like it's clean. I did it. I did one thing. Maybe I can do one more thing. It like gets me to do another thing because I feel like I did this one small thing.
So it's like a
that
momentum.
makes me feel better about like not
that's
having
motiv-
it like
motivated in a
filled
way,
up.
you know?
Yeah.
It's like you could do things.
I don't know. Like
It's
the
like-
small
it's a
like if you
domino
can't do a
effect.
big thing and you're like having anxiety over this huge thing you have to do, then just do like a small thing that
Totally
you
true.
want to do that is
Small
so
On
victories.
this ending note,
Yeah.
it's Taoism. You know,
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
left and a right.
This is a good
And
place
there's
to
a
end our
way.
discussion with a little bit of knowledge. So.
It's right.
Yes.
It's a way. You know, it's like you got the left and you got the right, but then there's the middle, and that's where we are. So it's like, you know, you can look at this middle path like it can be a right or a left, but by the end of the day, you know, you just
We're just going down
you
it.
pick something that works in your favor because nature is aligned in some kind of way. You know, it's like this old Chinese proverb is like, you know, let's say you're by a river and you want to walk to the end of the river. You don't walk up the high mountain to get towards the end of the river. You walk down the river because nature is structured in a way where you'll just find your way.
Right. That is true.
So we're
So,
gonna
you know.
probably start closing up our discussion because it's actually been 2 hours. Can you
Wow.
believe
It's amazing.
that?
That's a record.
That was 2 hours.
That's how, see, time is changing here, and no
Yeah.
trick questions. I'm so proud of you.
Maybe
Yeah, wow.
when more people watch it, they'll be asking
The
some
questions in
questions
retrospect.
after the fact. But if anyone wants to say any closing
Craigslist?
thoughts,
I was just gonna say to put
I don't know what it
everybody's
was.
anxiety at ease. Try to fall in love with the imperfection. Try to fall in love with the journey. Because if life's a destination, we're all headed towards the grave anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, fall in love with the fact that it's not perfect.
In body alone.
That things are changing.
yeah.
That things are incomplete. And if you can do that, then
Yeah.
your anxiety will go down. Because if you're only aiming for perfection, how often does that actually happen?
Every single
And
second.
the idea of perfection is always changing.
Yeah,
I was talking about that the other night, that there's never
One
perfect.
thing that's honestly helped me, and it's very morbid. I'm sorry for if anybody hears this and gets upset, but for me, it's like I'm for everything. The thing that's been helping me the most out of all things lately is just thinking that everything I'm doing is just preparing to die. Like everything that I do is in preparation for when I die. And so, like all I ask myself, what am I doing to make sure that I have control? Like not control, but that I die the way I want to die. Like probably not going to happen, you know, because we don't have as much control as we think we do. But I want to do my best in preparing for that moment, so that when it happens, it's not bad. It's
Or
like
you
it just
have-
happens.
You have
know?
all the control of non-control.
Right, whatever it is. But like the preparation really helps me. Like when I start thinking, like really what I'm doing, every moment is preparing for that moment.
Factual.
You know, and
so far it's like appreciate the now.
That's what gets me here. That's what gets me right. I'm like, you know what? All right, here I am then. You know, and that really helps me the most. And like also when I don't know what to do, what am I doing to prepare for when I'm not here? You know, which is like get rid of all my shit. Make sure the people I know like are like doing good or like that. Or the pathways of the things that are important to me are going in the direction that I want. And that's immediately gives me so much infinite will to power, like infinite.
This will lead to new places for you.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
really
new
helped me
path.
lately. Totally, it's really good.
Austin, do you want to leave us with anything?
Yes.
I know that you just came in, but if there's like
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll talk about. I don't know. I like what Chris was just saying, and I'm a sarcastic guy, and I was saying like every single moment was perfection, and like I kind of do believe that. And I agree with Chris. I'm pretty morbid, and so like I do think that like there's a sense that like sure you can't have control over your physical death, right? Like you never know, you can get hit by a car, and even to a degree, your mental state, like you could be like. You could think that everything's going good, but you could have like maybe you die and you're thinking about like something stupid that day that's embarrassing to you on like some cosmic scale. But like ultimately, really, it is like you said, it's about like making sure that generally speaking, your life, the narrative of your life, is on the path that like you feel most comfortable with, and that's like everything. Most people like don't have anything near that. You know, a lot of people are so far from that. And then, like, from my perspective of, like, just, like, I love, like, mathematics and harmony in nature and, like, pattern in nature. Not pattern in the sense of, like, this mechanical, like, pattern of, like, 0, 1, 0, like that kind of stuff. But, like, the actual, like, natural rhythms of, like, of life and everything. And so, for me, like, that is, like, that endless moment now perfection that, like, if you can live in harmony with that, then you live, and then your death is like brings you back to that. Obviously, we die, we rot, blah blah blah, and then we're back in the cycle again. So it's like, to me, like the closer you stay to like the understanding of like harmony with nature, harmony with life, right, and the further you're away from like the just robotic cyborg android, like just money breeding whatever like Instagram, Snapchat thing. Like just the whole, just like
manufactured,
like the manufactured, manipulated reality, totally everything commodified. The further you stay away from that, the more you're living naturally, like in harmony with nature. And that doesn't mean like that you're just, like a piece of shit. That just means like you're literally like living your life. How can I make my life fit within the cycle of life?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean we need to throw away technology. It's just common sense stuff most of the time. And to me, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And
you're saying if you stay on that path long enough, what you're saying, I think, is the way to true peace.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, balance is really it, because you can, there's this guy, Ted Kaczynski.
The mail bomber.
Somebody, who is, this guy very good at mathematics and language, and then he's like, oh, I'm gonna move to nature in the middle of Massachusetts, and then he's like, what's this? People are building roads around my home in Massachusetts in the middle of the woods. This cannot stand. Technology must be destroyed. I will send bombs to universities. And it's like, okay, guy, take it down a notch.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that comes from his isolation.
Yeah, any trip can really take you out of it,
That's
so
true, too.
it really is just a way, man.
It is the way. And that's actually what you're talking about, or actually what Austin is talking about, is what made me want to become friends with you, is because you would talk about things that I don't talk to basically anyone else about. Like, in terms of, like, one thing that I love that you share with me is, like, you said you've been outside in like, the forest, outside, at night, with just the moon. I don't know a single person who has just only been outside by themselves and done that. And to me, that's cool. Like, that is you fitting into the narrative of things, and that's cool. Like, and I'm trying to validate
the energy that he's talking about. I just noticed at nighttime is even more intense than in the day in nature, and it's like there's an energy behind it. So if you're just looking at it like Kaczynski looked at it, there's a certain number of trees, and now they knock down the tree and the road but it's the energy behind everything, the energy coming from the trees that's really gives you that peace of mind.
I forget which one it is. I don't know. I think Yin is the good. But they say that there's actually more good like energy at night because it's calmer, and then the yang is like
Yeah.
The dark.
Yeah.
Think about
Yeah.
solar panels. It absorbs the light during the day, but
Right.
it releases it at night. It's
Exactly.
the opposite.
That's the truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
definitely.
Wow, what great points that we all made tonight. This was an awesome discussion. I'm so happy you guys were able to join us too.
Absolutely.
And thank you guys for always being a part of this.
Genius level discussion.
Yeah, it was good today.
And we're always
5
going to
very
have
smart
more.
people.
This has been
Yeah.
episode 6.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I hope you guys,
Good
making
talking to
new
you guys.
friends
Yeah.
as well.
You get my brain thinking.
And if anybody
Yeah,
wants to listen to this this specific episode as well as episodes 1 through 5 on YouTube, it's search Omniologists Collective. You'll find the channel. I put up all the audio, and Facebook groups Omniologists Collective. You can join it. It's open. We want to get anybody, even if you don't live here. It's awesome having people that can talk about what we talk about, like from all over the world. So please join. And
just be conscious that there's limited space.
Yes.
Sure.
Can't have 200
watching
people
you.
here.
But yeah, so thank you, and good night.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Omniologist.
Nice.
That's gonna be the commercial.